Chapter 456. Ning Xuema was just itching to test her skills yesterday. She also felt that Yin Ziyuan's personality was quite similar to hers, so she said a few more words. She did not expect Yin Ziyuan to regard her as a teacher. This time, she insisted that she go and take a look. She even said that it was not just a Guqin recital in the boudoir. There would also be outstanding scholars and refined scholars participating. There would also be a prize, and Ning Xuema was more interested in that prize. Phoenix Crystal Wood. Currently, Ning Xuema's wood psychokinesis had already reached the 4th level. These past few days, she had encountered a bottleneck and was stuck at the 4th level, unable to break through. She remembered that Han Shangyue once told her that there was a shortcut if she wanted to break through this bottleneck. That was to absorb the energy of the Phoenix Crystal Wood. The Phoenix Crystal Wood was extremely rare, and it was produced in Daliang City. However, Ning Xuema did not know exactly where it was produced in Daliang City. Ning Xuema came to Daliang for 2 reasons. One was to come out of isolation here. The other was to find out about the whereabouts of the Phoenix Crystal Wood. She did not expect that it would be the prize for this Guqin recital. This time Ning Xuema had to go. She didn't know where the little Qilin had run off to play. Fortunately, Ning Xuema had telepathy with it, so she knew that it was happily gobbling up food somewhere. Thus, she didn't bother to inform it. Daliang City was a peninsula city. It was surrounded by mountains on one side and water on 3 sides. There were many lakes in the city. It was not an exaggeration to say that half of the city was surrounded by mountains and half a lake. The Guqin recital was held at the largest lake in the city, Qianming Lake. Qianming Lake was as big as Hangzhou's West Lake. It had a quaint stone bridge, boats, lotus leaves, and a boundless green lake. Regardless of day or night, the scenery was beautiful. When Ning Xuema arrived with Yin Ziyuan, the sun had just set. The setting sun melted the gold, and the distant mountains were beautiful. Pleasure boats floated back and forth on the lake, and a flock of egrets flew in the sky. Ning Xuema stood in a gazebo by the lake. Looking at the beautiful scenery of the lake and mountains, the gloominess in her heart seemed to have disappeared. She stretched her arms and took a deep breath of the fresh air by the lake. Freedom. It felt good to be free. Ever since she had transmigrated, she had rarely felt so relaxed. She looked at herself. Her red dress fluttered in the wind, making her look exceptionally valiant and formidable. In order to avoid trouble, her face was still the same as yesterday. She had thick black eyebrows and sallow skin. With high-end makeup skills, her cheekbones were protruding and her mouth was a size bigger than before. Her current appearance was poles apart from her former appearance. Only those who were extremely familiar with her would be able to find her original shadow and recognize her from her current appearance. In fact, Ning Xuema obviously worried too much. Even if she didn't put on makeup, her original acquaintances might not be able to recognize her at a glance. After all, after soaking in the hot spring, not only did she grow taller, her appearance was no longer as young and immature as before. Her figure was even more curvaceous. Even if Ji Yunhuang came, it would be difficult for him to recognize her at a glance. Looking at the beautiful scenery, Ning Xuema suddenly had the urge to howl. Although her temperament was calm, she was still a 20-year-old girl. She had the lively nature of a young girl. In the modern world, when climbing mountains or swimming lakes, she would often howl a few times at the highest point to relieve the pressure in her heart. Now she had this desire again. Chapter 457. Because the Guqin recital wouldn't start until after dark, most of the people hadn't arrived yet, so there weren't many people by the lake. There were only 3 people in this pavilion. Her, Yin Ziyuan, and her little maid. Ning Xuema faced the vast lake and shouted at the top of her lungs. Ah! His voice was clear and long, spreading far and wide. The mountains in the distance seemed to respond. Ah! Ning Xuema's sudden shout startled Yin Ziyuan. She looked at her with her eyes wide open. Shui? Ning Xuema pulled Ziyuan's hand and made her face the lake. She smiled and said, Ziyuan, why don't you give it a try? It's very comfortable. Yin Ziyuan's eyes lit up. She really wanted to shout out loud, but it was inappropriate for a girl to shout in this place. She was afraid that if her father knew about it, he would miss her again. The young maidservant also used the same reason to persuade Yan Ziyuan not to shout. While Yan Ziyuan was hesitating, Ning Xuema said casually, "People live for themselves. As long as you don't cross your bottom line, why should you care about other people's opinions?" She didn't care about Yan Ziyuan. Lin Hu shouted a few more times, and she felt that the weight in her heart had been lifted quite a bit. There were still people around the lake. Ning Xuema's shouts attracted a lot of attention. Ning Xuema didn't care at all. She stood there with her eyes full of elegance and high spirits. Yan Ziyuan was finally moved. She stood together with Ning Xuema and shouted at the lake. After all, she was the daughter of a noble family, so her voice was still a little soft and she didn't dare to let it out. But even so, he still felt a lot better. Ning Xuema giggled as she encouraged her, "Louder." Then she raised her voice and shouted again. Yan Ziyuan took a deep breath and finally threw away her scruples and shouted at the lake. Once they shouted the first time, the more they shouted, the more excited they became. The more they shouted, the happier they felt. Yan Ziyuan obviously had something on her mind. After shouting, her eyes lit up. "What are you doing?" A voice abruptly cut in. Yan Ziyuan's body stiffened. Her shout got stuck in her throat, and she slowly turned around. She pursed her lips. "Master!" Ning Xuema also turned around to take a look and frowned slightly. There were two people standing outside the pavilion, a man and a woman. The man looked to be in his 20s. He was handsome and had an elegant temperament. He wore a lake blue robe. At this moment, his dark eyes fell on Yan Ziyuan. His brows were slightly furrowed. It was obvious that he disapproved of her shouting. The woman was also around 16 or 17 years old. She had an elegant appearance and an elegant temperament. Her whole body was filled with a strong scholarly aura. She was holding a zither in her arms. When she saw Yan Ziyuan turn around, she bowed slightly. "Little sister Yuan." Yan Ziyuan, who had always been enthusiastic, had a cold face. She said in a domineering manner, "Who is your little sister? Don't randomly claim to be relatives." The woman bowed her head slightly. "Yes, Mississippi Ziyuan." The man's eyes darkened and his handsome face sank. Yan Ziyuan raised her head and looked at him. "What about me? Did I say something wrong? My father only has one biological daughter. She is just an adopted daughter. What qualifications does she have to call me little sister?" The man glanced at her and said coldly, "Yan Ziyuan, you are too much." Yan Ziyuan's face turned red. "You don't need to care if I'm too much or not. You don't need to interfere in the matter between me and her. You are just my zither player. Do you really want to lecture me?" Chapter 458. The man's expression also became cold. "You unreasonable. Rongyan, let's go." After taking 2 steps, he stopped. "You are a young lady, crying like a ghost and howling like a wolf is too disgraceful." At this point, he seemed to feel that he was meddlesome. He didn't finish his words and then strode away. Yan Ziyuan was like a little rooster with high fighting spirit, but now she is like a deflated ball, slowly sitting down with the support of the pillar. Ning Xuema has been watching with folded arms. She has already seen the general situation. She sat next to Yan Ziyuan and said indifferently, "Some things don't belong to you, so you don't have to force them." Yan Ziyuan's body stiffened and looked at her sideways. You can see it? Anyone with a little bit of observation can see it." Ning Xuema patted her shoulder. "Your emotions are actually written on your face. If you want to cry, I'll give you a shoulder to lean on. After you cry, cheer up. Don't let people see you as a joke." Yan Ziyuan's pair of big eyes were already misty, but she tightly pursed her lips. "I won't cry. I won't cry for them." Ning Xuema's palm pressed on her shoulder and didn't speak. Yan Ziyuan sat there blankly for a moment. In the end, she was still a 16-year-old girl, so she couldn't hide her emotions. Now that she met a confidant like Ning Xuema, she couldn't hold back her worries anymore. Without waiting for Ning Xuema to ask, she started to talk about her own matters. Yan Ziyuan's mother and Rongyan's mother used to be close friends, and had a very good relationship. Later, Rongyan's father was convicted and the whole family was demoted to commoners. Rongyan's father died of depression. The Rong family was completely defeated. They couldn't even live their lives. Rong Yan's mother took Rong Yan to Yan Mansion. When Yan Ziyuan's mother saw that her childhood friend was in trouble, she naturally didn't hesitate to entertain her. She arranged for the mother and daughter to stay in her residence, and provided them with good food and drinks every day. But he didn't expect that Rong Yan's mother would bite the hand that fed her. She was not content with her family and coveted Yan Daren's status. Intentionally or unintentionally, she seduced him. Yan Daren couldn't control himself for a moment, and had an affair with Rong's mother. Later, their affair was discovered by Yan Ziyuan's mother. Madame Yan was betrayed by both her husband and her best friend. She felt as if she had been struck by lightning. How could she tolerate this? He had a big fight with Lord Yan, and went to beat up Mother Rong. Lord Yan flew into a rage out of humiliation. He slapped Madame Yan and scolded her for being jealous. He even announced on the spot that he would take Mother Rong as his co-wife, and be on equal footing with Madame Yan. Madame Yan couldn't take this lying down. She fell seriously ill and passed away after a month in bed. Even when she died, she couldn't forgive her husband and didn't see her husband for the last time. Before Madame Rong's arrival, Madame Yan and Lord Yan's relationship was very good. Lord Yan didn't even have a concubine. After Madame Yan's death, Lord Yan was full of regret. However, regret couldn't be exchanged for Madame Yan's rebirth. Guilt made him especially dote on his only daughter, Yan Ziyuan. However, Yan Ziyuan couldn't forgive her father because of her mother's death. She couldn't tolerate the culprit of her mother's death, Madame Rong. Lord Yan had no choice but to move Madame Rong and her daughter out of the mansion, and buy them a house to settle down. Because Yan Ziyuan liked the Guqin, Lord Yan, in order to compensate his daughter, specially hired a famous Guqin master in Daliang City, Gu Ziyan, to be her teacher. The people of Daliang City loved musical instruments, especially the Guqin. Chapter 459. Almost everyone in the city knew how to play a song or two. Every year, there would be a Guqin competition. If one won the competition, not only would they become famous in Daliang City, their social status would also increase exponentially. Gu Ziyan was that year's champion. Not only was he good at playing the Guqin, but he was also young and handsome. He was almost the dream lover of all the girls in Daliang City. Yan Ziyuan also developed feelings for him in the process of learning the Guqin from him. Yan Ziyuan was a bold and passionate girl. She plucked up the courage to pursue him and confess to him. She did not expect that she would be rejected by Gu Ziyan on the spot. After Gu Ziyan rejected her, he probably did not want to get into trouble, so he refused to be her Guqin master and never visited her again. Yan Ziyuan was not discouraged. She continued to pursue him, sending him gifts, and fighting for every opportunity to meet him. Until one day, she saw Gu Ziyan and Rong Yan walking together. Later, she found out that Gu Ziyan and Rong Yan were childhood sweethearts. The two were friends before the Rong family fell. Yan Ziyuan was hit especially hard. It turned out that the person she liked was the childhood sweetheart of the person she hated the most. She was defeated by that woman. There was nothing more dramatic than this. Yan Ziyuan could not recover from the shock for a long time. She originally had an excellent Guqin. Gu Ziyan had chosen it for her when he was her Guqin master. She had always regarded it as a treasure. However, ever since she found out about the relationship between Gu Ziyan and Rong Yan, she wanted to smash the Guqin. But she had a fetish and could not bear to destroy her own things. In the end, she sent someone to throw the Guqin out. Out of sight, out of mind. Of course, she had also completely given up on Gu Ziyan. However, rationality was one thing, and feelings were another. She was deeply invested in this relationship. How could it be so easy to withdraw completely? Her feelings for Gu Ziyan could not be put down so easily. Fortunately, she was more rational and did not ask about Gu Ziyan's matters. She would not go to places where Gu Ziyan was present. In order to ease his daughter's anxiety and divert her attention, Lord Yan had organized several tea parties, flower parties, poetry parties. He had even arranged for her to go to the capital to watch the Celestial Master's enthronement ceremony, so that she could broaden her horizons and forget about that person. Over the past year, she had made a lot of friends and had become a lot more cheerful. She even thought that she had let go of her feelings for Gu Ziyan, but she did not expect that the moment she saw him for the first time today, her heart would still beat violently. Being scolded by him, her heart would still hurt. Seeing him and Rong Yen together, her heart still felt like it was about to explode. She just wanted to cry a good cry. She said she would not cry, but in front of Ning Xiuema, she still shed tears. In the end, she simply leaned on Ning Xiuema's shoulder and cried. After crying, she dejectedly said that she had signed up for this Guqin party, because she heard that Gu Ziyan would not be coming. She did not expect him to come, so she was ready to withdraw and pull Ning Xiuema back to her Yen mansion. Since you are ready to let go of him, why not face him bravely? Treat him like an ordinary person? Ning Xiuema could not help but sigh and pat Yen Ziyuan's shoulder. Chapter 460. Ning Xiuema said again. Didn't you always want to be a chivalrous woman in Jianghu? Running away like this is not like you. It's not chivalrous at all. You don't owe them anything, so why are you afraid? If you just leave like this, aren't you afraid that Rong Yin will laugh at you? The little maid was also indignant. That's right, miss. Your zither skills have improved very quickly this year. This time, you might be able to get a good ranking and surpass that Rong Yin. Do you really want to see that vixen win the championship and raise her tail to the sky? In the end, Yen Ziyuan was a hot-blooded girl. Her fingers slightly clenched, as if touched, and she lowered her head in silence. Ning Xiuema took out a mirror from somewhere and handed it to her. Come, look for yourself and increase your confidence. You are not worse than that woman. That person giving up on you is the biggest loss in his life. These words made Yen Ziyuan laugh, and her eyes lit up. Yes, she had to walk out of the knot in her heart in the end. Blindly running away was not her style. Not only did she want to participate in this zither recital, she also wanted to participate in it in a grand manner. Ning Xiuema and Yen Ziyuan changed into a new set of clothes, freshened up, and walked into the boat where the zither recital was held under the accompaniment of the musical attendants. It was already dark, and the people who came to participate in the zither recital had almost all arrived. The interior of the boat was decorated in an antique style. There were incense tables, auspicious beasts burning incense, and ink paintings of mountains and rivers on the screen. All of them showed one word: elegance. There were many people who came to participate in the competition, a total of 38 people. They were all experts in the zither, and most of them were young men and women. Everyone was carefully dressed. The men's clothes fluttered in the wind, and the women's skirts were slender. Playing the zither was an elegant activity, so the men and women who came to participate in the competition highlighted one word: elegance. There were no strange clothes, no bright red or purple, and mainly plain colors. Even the jewelry on the women's heads was removed, and most of them used a white jade hairpin or a green jade hairpin. Because of the plain clothes on this boat, when Yen Ziyuan and Ning Xiuema walked in, they attracted everyone's attention. If the red dress was not worn properly, it would appear gaudy. But today, Yen Ziyuan's outfit gave people an extremely breathtaking feeling. When it came to fashion sense, if Ning Xiuema claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. And today, Yen Ziyuan's outfit was completed under her command. She wore a fiery red mermaid dress that dragged on the ground, and a piece of the same color draped over her shoulders. A southern pearl the size of a cat's eye hung on her snow-white neck, glistening brightly. Her black hair wasn't tied up in a bun, but draped over her shoulders like a waterfall. There was only a flower branch strung with pearls on top of her head. Her eyebrows were slightly raised, and the corners of her eyes were slightly raised. There was a bright red dot between her eyebrows, and her red lips were full, like a red cherry blossom slightly blooming in the rain. She gently pursed her lips, and there was a soul-stirring beauty. There were all kinds of palace lanterns hanging around the hall. Under the flickering candlelight, her face was even more stunning. This red dress on her body was like a ball of bright fire. It didn't seem tacky, but had a kind of extreme elegance and nobility. Of course, it was also in line with her identity as the daughter of the city lord. There were occasional gasps in the hall, and it was unknown how many pairs of eyes fell on her body. Those eyes were filled with amazement, jealousy, and of course disapproval. Yan Ziyuan's identity was noble, and most of the people present knew her. They came forward to greet her, and some greeted her. Chapter 461. Compared to Yan Ziyuan's high profile, Ning Xuema's attire was very ordinary. She only wore a dress that did not show off her figure. Her makeup was neither ugly nor handsome, so standing beside Yan Ziyuan, she seemed to be overshadowed. Almost no one noticed her existence. On the other hand, Yan Ziyuan often pulled Ning Xuema in front of her and introduced her to the others. This is Zither Master Shui, from the capital. Ziyuan's zither skills have benefited greatly from her guidance. She is Ziyuan's good teacher and helpful friend. Because of her introduction, there were a few people who looked at Ning Xuema a few times. Ning Xuema smiled back at them, making it difficult for people to guess her depth. Among the gazes that looked at Ning Xuema, there were two that could not be ignored. Ning Xuema deliberately looked back, and happened to meet the eyes of the blue-robed Gu Ziyan. Gu Ziyan's gaze was somewhat complicated. It was sharp and cold, as if he was evaluating Ning Xuema's worth. Ning Xuema calmly looked back. Unexpectedly, she could faintly see some hostility in his eyes. Hostility? Where did this hostility come from? Ning Xuema was actually somewhat puzzled. She knew that this genius Zither Master Gu was not participating today, but was there as a judge. Ning Xuema could not help but sigh in her heart. No wonder Yan Ziyuan could not forget this Zither Master Gu. This person's appearance was indeed several levels higher than all the men around him. His temperament was also good, belonging to the cool type of handsome guy. When he sat on the judges' panel, everyone else became a part of the background. Who knew how many young girls' gazes secretly lingered on his body? Who knew how many young girls' gazes were on the corners of his robes? Of course, this did not include Ning Xuema. It was not that she did not like looking at handsome guys, but with the two super handsome guys in front of her, Shui Yilan and Han Shangyue, she was already immune to other handsome guys. She did not know why, but she suddenly thought of Han Shangyue. She secretly thought that if this person were to appear here now, she was afraid that this boat would be overturned. At that time, it was unknown whether these young girls' gazes would still linger on Gu Ziyan. Although Yan Ziyuan was also a participant, her status was still there, so her seat was a good position, close to the judges' panel. She did not know whether the person who arranged the seating arrangement did it intentionally or not, but her seat was right next to Rong Yan's. Rong Yan's head was slightly lowered. When she saw Yan Ziyuan coming over, her eyes flashed with hatred, but when she raised her head, her gaze became gentle. She stood up and bowed to Yan Ziyuan, Sister Yuan. She seemed to feel that it was inappropriate, so she changed her words. Miss Yan Rong Yan is blessed. Her voice was melodious, and she had a good voice. Yan Ziyuan's gaze was cold and she only said one sentence. Give up your seat. Rong Yan's face stiffened, and the appropriate smile on her face almost disappeared. What did you say? Yan Ziyuan ignored her, and raised her head to look at the chief steward who arranged the seating arrangements. Move her things elsewhere, I want this place. The zither recitals held in Daliang City were all sponsored by the Yan family, so these people were very polite to the eldest daughter of the Yan family, and did not want to provoke her. Although Yan Ziyuan was usually the eldest daughter of the Yan family, she did not have a temper. No matter what the competition was, she would not oppress others because of her status, and always participated with her own ability. Even if she did not win any awards, she would not be dissatisfied, and would not embarrass others. Therefore, most people were very respectful to this eldest daughter of the Yan family. No one would have thought that she would directly embarrass Rong Yan, and chase them away. Chapter 462. Everyone was stunned. Rong Yan's pretty face turned green and white. On the judging panel, Gu Ziyan slightly frowned. His eyes fell on Yan Ziyun. Ziyun, you've gone too far. His tone was the usual tone he used when talking to her, with a sense of condescension, as if he was her master. Yan Ziyuan also faintly glanced at him. Child Gu, whether I've gone too far or not, it's not up to you to say. This was the first time she had insulted him in front of others. This was also the first time she didn't call him master, but child Gu Ziyan was somewhat embarrassed, his handsome face faintly paled. Ziyuan you dash, child Gu, you and I are no longer master and disciple. It's inappropriate to call me by my name. Please call me Miss Yan. Yan Ziyuan spoke again. Such a distant attitude, such a cold tone. Gu Ziyan's fingers slightly clenched, as if he was enduring. All right, Miss Yan. Rong Yan was the third place last year. What's wrong with her sitting there? You want to drive her away? Yan Ziyuan glanced at Rong Yan. Rong Yan's head was slightly lowered, but it just so happened that people could see the hazy light in her eyes, as if there were tears in her eyes, as if she had suffered a great grievance. Yan Ziyuan's eyes flashed with a touch of anger. That year, it was this woman's mother who used this kind of weakness to seduce her father, and finally killed her mother. This really is like mother like daughter. Her daughter used this method to win the sympathy of everyone. Yan Ziyuan suppressed the anger in her heart, and coldly said, I came with my friend and master, we want to sit together. As for this Miss Rong, she was only the third place last year. There are still several previous third-place winners here. There are even 2 second-place winners, but I don't see them sitting in this seat. Child Gu arranged for her to sit here alone. Isn't that a bit biased? The seat that Rong Yan was sitting on could only be occupied by a woman of Yan Ziyuan's status. With Rong Yan's status, it was indeed inappropriate for her to sit there. And Ning Xuema appeared in the name of Yan Ziyuan's friend and master. Naturally, she would take the upper position. Therefore, Yan Ziyuan's words were not inappropriate. However, Yan Ziyuan usually didn't care too much about this. Last time, Rong Yan was sitting in this position. At that time, Yan Ziyuan felt wronged and endured it. Therefore, when Rong Yan arrived this time, he decided to sit in this seat. Although the chief steward who made the arrangements didn't think it was appropriate, he tacitly agreed to it for the sake of Gu Ziyan and Lord Yan's adopted daughter. But she didn't expect that this time Yan Ziyuan wouldn't tolerate it anymore, which made Rong Yan quite uncomfortable. In front of so many people, she didn't want to give up this seat. A pair of watery eyes looked at Gu Ziyan for help. Ziyan Gij, Gu Ziyan's face didn't look very good. He paused for a moment and said, Rong Yan, you change your seat. Rong Yan was stunned. Although she was unwilling in her heart, at this time, there was no other way. She could only tidy up the zither and move her seat. The chief steward who arranged the seating arrangements arranged a new seat for her. The arranged seat was not far from the rostrum. It was arranged with the other second and third place winners, so she couldn't find any other reason. Ning Xuema seemed to be watching a good show. She didn't open her mouth, but in her heart, she felt that Yan Ziyuan was really a good child to teach. She should have been like this a long time ago. A kind person is bullied. A kind horse is ridden. When necessary, you still need to use your momentum to suppress people. Dear friends, can you guess who will come to this zither festival? Then shout at the top of your lungs about the recommendation tickets and monthly tickets. Chapter 463. Miss, are you a Guqin master from the capital? Are you Miss Yan's current master? Gu Ziyan suddenly turned to face Ning Xuema and asked. She and I are like a teacher and a friend. We've only given her a few pointers. Ning Xuema lazily replied with a smile that wasn't a smile. Miss Yan's Guqin skills are very good. Since Miss can give her pointers, your Guqin skills must be even better. I wonder if this one would be willing to exchange pointers? Ning Xuema couldn't help but glance at him. It seems that this man's hostility towards her has deepened. He actually opened his mouth to challenge her. The crowd also looked at each other in dismay. Although Gu Ziyan's personality was cold, his temperament was modest, and he didn't have a competitive heart. How many people wanted to challenge him, but he had indifferently declined. Who would have thought that today he would actually challenge a woman like Ning Xuema? What kind of provocation did he receive? Yan Ziyuan's eyes revealed a touch of sadness. He must be angry at her for driving Rong Yan away, so he came to find trouble with her friend. Rong Yan really is his sweetheart. For her, even his temperament has changed. Everyone had their own thoughts, but Ning Xuema only smiled and said, This little girl also came to participate in the competition. When it's this little girl's turn, I hope that child Gu will not be stingy with his guidance. Having said that, Gu Ziyan couldn't say anything else. He only said one sentence. Then I will listen to Miss Yan's high notes. The crowd looked at each other again, and finally looked at Ning Xiuema. Whether it was Ning Xiuema's appearance or dress, she was the kind that didn't attract attention. Especially her pair of small hands, which looked a bit rough and dark, not at all delicate like a master guqin player. Therefore these people didn't believe that Ning Xiuema was a guqin master. They thought that she was a street performer that Yan Ziyuan casually pulled out to annoy Gu Ziyan. Most of the gazes that looked at her were filled with suspicion and disdain. There were even people talking in low voices behind them, voicing the suspicions in their hearts, and then laughing mockingly. Ning Xiuema's ears were sharp. She heard their mocking words, but she didn't take it to heart. She wasn't the kind of person who cared about rumors and slanders. She had always done things her own way, and didn't care about what others said about her. He ate and drank as he pleased. He sat there and peeled melon seeds. The boat was quite large. It was currently sailing on the misty lake. The sound of the zither could be heard from the boat, reverberating and rippling on the surface of the lake. The guqin competition had already begun. The contestants played the guqin according to the order they had arranged beforehand. Because there was not enough time, each contestant was only allowed to play a short piece. Those who played particularly well would be allowed to play 2 short pieces. Because Ning Xiuema was added later by Yan Ziyuan, she was arranged to be the last to perform. These contestants had actually gone through several rounds of selection. To be able to participate in the last round of the competition, everyone naturally had some skills. Ning Xiuema cracked melon seeds, drank tea, and listened to the music. At first, she was still commenting on the players in her heart, or listening to the comments of the 4 judges. These 4 judges were indeed worthy of being highly respected. Every comment was on point and very authentic. Gu Ziyan's comments were very few, but every one of them was sharp and accurate, going straight to the core. His evaluation of each contestant was extremely appropriate. Ning Xiuema also had some admiration. It seemed that Gu Ziyan's reputation as a guqin genius was not undeserved. She listened to the first dozen or so contestants, and their guqin skills were not bad. Chapter 464. Compared to Ning Xiuema, these people are still lacking. She was rather impatient, and turned her head to look out of the window. There were many windows on the cruise ship, and her seat was near a window. At this moment, the night breeze was blowing, and she could hear the sound of the oars moving across the water. She felt a little drowsy, and the music played by the players behind her was like a lullaby to her. Unknowingly, one of the players stopped playing. Since Miss Xue is a master from the capital, why don't you give this servant some pointers? Miss Xue? Miss Xue? A soft voice sounded. Ning Xiuema was in a half-asleep state when she was suddenly pushed by someone. She finally woke up from her nap. When she looked up, she saw that Rong Yan had just stopped playing and a pair of eyes fell on her. Her tone was gentle and polite, but her eyes flashed a trace of disdain and malice. Obviously, she found out that Ning Xiuema was dozing off and deliberately wanted to embarrass Ning Xiuema. Miss Xue couldn't have fallen asleep, right? Could it be that our music is too vulgar and can't enter Miss Xue's ears? Rong Yan's voice was softer, and her words were more sarcastic. Rong Yan. Gu Ziyan's face showed displeasure. Ziyan Gij, I'm sorry, but this little sister really wants to listen to Miss Xue's comments. A master from the capital must have some unique points. If you give some pointers, this little sister will benefit a lot. This time, Rong Yan was determined to embarrass Ning Xiuema, because she clearly saw that Ning Xiuema had already fallen asleep while she was playing the zither. Everyone's eyes fell on Ning Xiuema, waiting to see what she would say. This white lotus actually came to provoke her. Ning Xiuema couldn't help but want to laugh. She didn't want to be meddlesome today and wanted to be a good person, but in the end, her eyes turned to Rong Yan's face and smiled. You really want me to comment? Her voice was very gentle and kind, but Rong Yan's heart inexplicably trembled. Her intuition seemed to have provoked someone who shouldn't be provoked. But now that she had said it, she had no room to retreat. Therefore, she nodded reservedly. Please enlighten me, Miss Xue. Since you want me to comment, then Miss Rong Yan must think that I am a first-rate teacher, on the same level as these 4 masters. Since Miss Rong addressed the 4 of them as great masters, you should naturally address me as such as well. There was no need to talk about young ladies anymore. If they broke the rules, they would not be asking for guidance. Don't you think so, Miss Rong? Rong Yen was speechless. Ning Xuema's words were so sharp that Rong Yen was speechless. However, how could she be willing to call Ning Xuema great master now? She rolled her eyes and said sweetly, Miss Xue's words are naturally reasonable, but we still haven't seen Miss Xue's true skills. Now that he addressed Miss Xue as master, it was likely that everyone present would not be convinced. Miss Xue has to rely on her true ability to convince the masses. I don't know what Miss Rong wants to see my true ability. Ning Xuemo raised an eyebrow. You want me to play a piece for you now? I remember that my piece was arranged at the end. If I play it now, it would break the rules of this zither recital. Or does Miss Rong think that you are a cut above others, that you have a childhood sweetheart as a judge, so you can change the rules at will? Rong Yen was once again blocked by Ning Xuema's words. She opened her mouth and was about to say something, but Gu Zian, who was sitting at the judge's table, said lightly, The rules cannot be changed. Chapter 465. Yan Ziyuan also proudly opened her mouth. The rules are the rules. This lady does not have the right to change them, others do not. When she said this, she inadvertently glanced at Gu Zian. She did not expect Gu Zian's pair of black eyes to fall on her body, the color of his eyes faintly complicated. The two people's eyes met. Gu Zian expressionlessly looked away. Yan Ziyuan also lowered her eyes. Yan Ziyuan rarely did not give him face. After this time he will only hate her even more. But she can't endure anymore, not to mention she can't let her friends be wronged. Rong Yan's face changed again. Even Gu Zian did not speak up for her. She had to change her mind and smiled. The rules really cannot be changed. The servant also did not mean that. Then, can I ask this lady to comment on the quality of the performance of the few people just now? I think they would also like to be guided by this lady. She looked at the few people who just finished playing not long ago. Those people naturally nodded again and again. Ning Xuema smiled and leisurely said, Do you know that my comments are worth 1,000 gold? If you want me to comment, that's fine. Show me your sincerity. Rong Yan was startled. Her face immediately showed disdain. Lady Xue, the zither is an extremely elegant thing. Tainting it with the stench of money is not good. I'm afraid it will be ridiculed. The others also showed a look of agreement. How can an elegant person's activity be tainted with gold and silver? This woman is too worldly. Ning Xuema's lips curved. Then I would like to ask Lady Rong, is painting an extremely elegant thing? Of course it is. Rong Yen answered without hesitation. Zither, chess, calligraphy and painting are originally the elegant activities of an elegant person. That painting Saint Han Shangyue is extraordinary enough, right? His paintings are hard to get even with millions of gold. When did you see him give away his paintings on the streets? This. Rong Yen choked. If this is a painting competition, you invited Master Han to come and let him give you comments one by one? Rong Yan's face turned green. Everyone looked at each other. One of them harumphed indignantly. Master Han is known to be a leading figure in the art world. How can you compare to him? Ning Xuema's face darkened and she sneered. You haven't heard the sound of my zither yet. How can you be sure that I'm not the leading figure in the ancient zither world? That person was tongue-tied, and he also retreated. A well-off young man surnamed Du, who had just finished playing, stood up and expressed that he was willing to pay 1,000 gold for Ning Xuema's comments. Ning Xuema leisurely smiled. All right. Originally, my comments are priceless, but since I've just arrived at your precious land, and you are all Liang's citizens, I have to give Ziyuan some face and give a few comments during this zither recital. That young Master Du was quite straightforward and immediately handed over 1,000 taels of silver. Young Master Du wanted to play another song, and let Ning Xuema comment again. Ning Xuema waved her hand to indicate that there was no need. She immediately started to comment on the strengths and weaknesses of his zither playing, as well as the shortcomings. Her words were not much, but they were extremely incisive. Every word and sentence went straight to the point. Almost everyone present was an expert in the zither. When they first listened to her, they were somewhat disdainful. They thought that she was just deliberately mystifying, and in reality, she was just looking for a copy of the words in her sleep. But after listening to a few words, almost everyone's expression became dignified. Too incisive. Not only did she point out the small mistakes in young Master Du's zither playing, but she also pointed out how to correct them. Chapter 466. Ning Xuema's comments were all ignored by the 4 judges. They simply didn't mention it. Ning Xuema only gave a few comments, but young Master Du felt that he had benefited a lot. His attitude had also changed from indifference to wholeheartedly convinced. When Ning Xuema finished, he clasped his hands and bowed. Miss Shui is indeed a master of the Guqin. I have learned a lot. Thank you. No matter which profession, the strong were respected. It was the same for Guqin masters. The other Guqin masters looked at Ning Xuema differently. They no longer looked at her with disdain, but as if they were looking at a real master. There were many rich kids present. After young Master Du, there were a few people who wanted to spend a lot of money to invite Ning Xuema to give her comments. Ning Xuema sat down lazily. It's getting late. Let's hurry up with the competition. For those who need my comments, I will speak up after the 4 masters. She had a kind of arrogant attitude, with the strength of a master. She was also good at acting cool. The others did not dare to say anything else. The Guqin competition continued. Among the people behind, after the judging, they spent a lot of money to invite Ning Xuema to give her comments. Ning Xuema's comments were just right, making everyone wholeheartedly convinced. The people who received her comments benefited a lot. Everyone looked at her with more respect and admiration. Even the 4 judges were convinced by Ning Xuema's comments. Ning Xuema was in the limelight. Yin Ziyuan also felt proud and elated. Her eyes were full of smiles. She was originally a bright and beautiful girl. Now that she was sitting in her seat, she attracted the attention of many young talents. Yin Ziyuan occasionally turned her head and met Gu Ziyan's eyes. His eyes were pure black and deep like a whirlpool. Yin Ziyuan's heart skipped a beat. She was the first to look away. Since they were not fated to be together, she had to learn how to let go. Gu Ziyan also lowered his eyes and took a sip of tea. The girl who used to be lively and straightforward, who used to circle around him every day, now had such a cold gaze. He suddenly felt that this tea was actually very bitter, causing his mouth to be filled with bitterness. In fact, he didn't know what he was feeling either. He clearly hated her and didn't want her to bother him. But when she really stopped pestering him, he felt a little lost. When he really couldn't see her, he actually started to miss her and even dreamed of her occasionally. Gu Ziyan didn't plan to be a judge for this Guqin recital, but when he heard that Yin Ziyuan would be participating, he unexpectedly agreed. He was the one who had resigned from his position as her teacher. He was the one who didn't want her. But why did he feel jealous when he saw that she had found a new teacher? Moreover, the teacher was a woman. His heart was filled with a bitter taste. He lifted his sleeve and coughed twice. Gu Ziyan had been feeling unwell for the past few days, but he had forced himself to sit here. Now he still felt a little dizzy. Yin Ziyuan seemed to have heard the commotion. She glanced at him and saw his pale face. She knew that his old illness had flared up again. If it was in the past, she would have flown over like a little swallow and asked about his well-being. She even specially prepared medicine for him. Back then, she always had it on her. Even now, she still had the special medicine that she had specially prepared for him. Sometimes habits were really a scary thing. Yin Ziyuan touched the medicine in her sleeve. Right now, it wasn't her turn to care for him. There would naturally be someone who would care for him. Chapter 467. Yin Ziyuan suppressed the bitterness in her heart. Her eyes swept over him. Sure enough, after Gu Ziyan coughed twice, Rongyan walked over and asked him a few words with concern. Her demeanor was very intimate. Gu Ziyan suddenly felt a little irritated. He just answered her with a few words, and couldn't help but glance at Yin Ziyuan. He thought she would come over. But Yin Ziyuan just turned her head to look at him, and then looked away, focusing her energy on the person playing the zither. The expression on her pretty face was still the same, slightly pursing her lips, proud like a little peacock. Ziengage. Rong Yan's call called him back to his senses. He suddenly felt dispirited, waved his hand, indicating that he didn't mind, and let Rong Yan return to her seat. Finally, it was Yan Ziyuan's turn. The zither boy behind her brought her a zither. Gu Ziyan's eyes fell on her zither, his eyes slightly narrowed. The style of her zither and the one she used to play was very different. The one she used to play was a scorched tail zither, with black as the main theme. But now this one was golden red, with her red dress. It was surprisingly harmonious. Yan Ziyuan originally didn't wear red in front of him, because she knew that he didn't like red and green things, and liked to wear plain clothes, so she always wore plain clothes. His occasional praise could make her pair of eyes shine brightly for a long time. The current Yan Ziyuan seemed to have completely said goodbye to her past, and restored her original nature. Her original nature was so flamboyant and passionate. Originally, she was like his little attendant, everything revolved around him. Now, Yan Ziyuan finally radiated her original style, so youthful and compelling. Don't know how many men's eyes lingered on her body, and her eyes no longer stopped for him. He took another sip of tea, only to feel the bitterness in his mouth. Yan Ziyuan's zither skills have improved a lot compared to before. It was as smooth as flowing water, and increased a lot of spirituality. She played 2 bars before stopping. Applause rang out in the hall. It was clear that listening to her play the zither was indeed a pleasure. Maybe it was because she was feeling it, or maybe it was because she had been enlightened by a great teacher. But this time there was a different flavor to her zither music. This flavor brought people into her melody, and their emotions couldn't help but be affected by her, fluctuating along with her zither music. As the last note of the zither fell, everyone had a feeling that it was not enough, and wanted to continue listening to her play. The people present were all experts and felt that she had performed the best in this zither recital. The other 3 judges also had high praises for her performance this time, and said a lot. When it was Gu Ziyan's turn to comment, he only said 2 words, "Very good." Yan Ziyuan pursed her red lips and lowered her eyes. Although he didn't comment much on others, it wouldn't be to this extent. It was obvious that he was being perfunctory. It seemed that he hated her to the core. Her eyes inexplicably felt a bit sore. She blinked her eyes and held back those tears. Yan Ziyuan only gave Gu Ziyan a slight nod like she did with the other judges, expressing her gratitude. Her gaze then turned to Ning Xiuema, clearly wanting to hear her comments. Naturally, Ning Xiuema gave her a few comments, pointing out some of her minor flaws. In the end, she faintly smiled. Up until now, you're the one who displayed the best performance and played the most standard. Chapter 468. This was the highest evaluation, but no one had any objections because the majority of the people also thought so. Rongyan lowered her head to drink tea, but her fingers holding the cup were a little tight and her knuckles were a little pale. She thought that she could win the competition today, but she didn't expect Yan Ziyuan to be in the limelight. Why? She was also Lord Yan's daughter, although she was an adopted daughter. But her mother was married to Lord Yan, wasn't she? She was also a co-wife. But now she was living like a concubine, and couldn't even enter the Yan mansion's gate. Her mother thought that after Madame Yan's death, she would be able to become the mistress of the Yan mansion. But she didn't expect that Yan Ziyuan would become a big stumbling block. That girl wouldn't tolerate them no matter what. And after Lord Yan moved them to the outer residence, he didn't even visit them once a year. If it wasn't for her cleverness, trying to please her godfather, perhaps they wouldn't even have enough money to live an ordinary life and would be bullied to death by the servants in the mansion. Every time Rong Yan saw Yan Ziyuan, although she was respectful and polite, but in her heart, she couldn't wait to stab this girl and curse her to die quickly. In front of Gu Ziyan, she also intentionally or unintentionally said bad things about Yan Ziyuan, making Gu Ziyan's impression of Yan Ziyuan drop again and again. Rong Yan suppressed the hatred in her heart, and softly congratulated Yan Ziyuan like everyone else. Yan Ziyuan ignored her, as if she didn't see her. Rong Yan's face looked like she was wronged and helpless, but her heart sneered. The more bad Yan Ziyuan's attitude towards her, the more people had opinions and dissatisfaction towards Yan Ziyuan. After all, among the people present, More than half were children of ordinary families. It was common to pity the poor and hate the rich. The more condescending Yan Ziyuan's attitude towards Rong Yan, the easier it was to arouse the public's disgust. Sure enough, she secretly scanned the crowd and received a lot of pity and sympathy from their eyes. She also saw that they were disappointed in Yan Ziyuan. She couldn't help but look at Gu Ziyan again. She felt that he would speak up for her, or comfort her with his gaze. But no. Gu Ziyan seemed to be distracted. He kept drinking tea, and his face was paler than usual. After that, a few more contestants bounced over, and the judges all had their own opinions. Finally, it was the last person's turn. The last person was Ning Xiuema. At this time, it was already close to midnight. Everyone was a bit sleepy, but Ning Xiuema's appearance made everyone excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. After commenting on so many people, it was finally her turn to take the stage. Many people only knew how to talk, but they did not know if this young lady really had the ability to shock the world with a single song. Ning Xiuema did not bring her own zither. After she stood up, she smiled and said, "This time I came out in a hurry, so I did not bring my zither. Who has a zither that I want to use?" Once the words came out, the audience was silent. Everyone understood that when playing the zither, one should play the zither that they were already used to, and not casually change it. Especially during the competition, one should pay more attention to this point. The zither that everyone brought this time was the one that they were most familiar with. But now Ning Xiuema actually casually asked for a zither. Did she really not put these people in her eyes? Or was her zither skills so high that she did not need to choose a zither? Rong Yan's eyes flashed slightly. She was about to ask to lend her zither to Ning Xiuema, but Gu Ziyan said lightly, "Use mine." With a wave of his hand, the zither boy behind him carried his zither to Ning Xiuema's zither. Chapter 469. The zither was wrapped in a soft silk cloth. After the silk cloth was untied, the black charred body of the zither was finally exposed. The zither is indeed a good zither. Both the strings and the body are perfect. Ning Xiuema tried playing a few notes and nodded her head. This zither is good to her liking. When Yan Ziyuan saw the zither, her face slightly changed. Is this the zither that she threw away? Look at the color and the shape. It's exactly the same. Is it a coincidence? Or is it really that zither? She did throw away the zither in a fit of pique. As for where the servant girl threw the zither, she was afraid that she would regret it, so she never asked. Now that she suddenly saw the exact same zither here, her heart felt like it was thrown into a stone, endlessly turbulent. Suppressing her heartbeat, she looked at the zither a few more times, feeling that it's even more similar. After all, this zither has been with her for a year. She is already familiar with its every texture, every string. It's impossible to be wrong. Could it be that after she threw away the zither, it was picked up by Gu Ziyan? What does he mean? Her eyes couldn't help but look at Gu Ziyan. This time Gu Ziyan and her did not have a tacit understanding. His face did not have much expression. He just coughed twice. Rong Yan naturally also recognized this zither. Her face changed. She couldn't help but say, "Ziyan Gij, this is not the zither you usually use." Gu Ziyan seemed to not care. "What does it matter if I use it or not? Zither are spiritual weapons. Every zither should be treasured." Are these words meant for her to hear? Yan Ziyuan slightly pursed her lips, her heart feeling complicated. Fortunately, her bad mood did not last long, because Ning Xiuema has already started to play. After a few notes, the whole hall instantly quieted down. When an expert shows his hand, it's easy to tell. Ning Xiuema only played a short piece of music, but it was enough to stun everyone in the hall. Ning Xiuema loved musical instruments. She knew a lot of musical instruments, but the one she was best at was the guqin. Perhaps it was because she had a special talent for playing the zither. In her previous life, when she learned this zither, she felt as if she had the help of God. It was as if this was an innate skill that she had picked up again. Every time she played, even her teacher would be amazed. After learning for a year, not only did she surpass her teacher, but she also couldn't find a match for her in terms of playing the guqin. If she hadn't become a special agent, perhaps she would have become a famous zither player in her previous life. The song she played this time was Moonlit Night on the Spring River. It was a famous song, but the people in this world had never heard it before. Coupled with her superb zither skills, it almost instantly brought people into the atmosphere of the zither. Along with the sound of the zither, a beautiful scene seemed to unfold before the eyes of the people on the boat. The moon was as big as a round plate, and the river water was flowing. The moonlight floated in the river, and the ripples were like fragments of silver. There were sporadic flowers blooming on the riverbank. As the river flowed, the flowers bloomed and withered in an instant. And the moon was sometimes full and sometimes waxing. The moon was waxing and waning, and the flowers bloomed and withered. Only the flowing river water remained unchanged. It was as if time flowed like water, and life had its own vicissitudes. Everyone held their breaths, afraid that if they breathed out too much, it would disturb the beautiful sound of the zither. People who dabbled in the arts were sensitive, and their emotions were easily affected by the sound of music. Those who were sensitive already had tears in their eyes, as if they were on the vast and empty riverbank, feeling the passage of time and the impermanence of life. Chapter 470. Ning Xiuema had already played more than 2 parts of the song, but no one interrupted her. Finally, the complete moonlit spring river flower night was played, and the sound of the zither stopped. There was a moment of silence in the hall, and then there was a thunderous applause. Almost everyone stood up and applauded Ning Xiuema with all their might. Even 3 of the 4 judges on the judging panel stood up and applauded for her. Even the strictest zither master could not find any problems with Ning Xiuema's playing. The 3 zither masters gave her a high evaluation in unison. This song can only be heard in the heavens. How many times can it be heard in the human world? Gu Zian also gave a sigh and said, listening to Miss Shue's song, this Gu feels like I learned it for nothing. Miss Shue's title of Great Zither Master is well deserved. Miss Shue is the champion of this zither competition. Ning Xiuema smiled. You flatter me. She was not interested in being the champion of the zither competition. She was interested in the prize, the crystal phoenix wood. Her gaze landed on the prize, and her eyes sparkled. That thing was finally hers. Ning Xiuema gently pushed the zither and said, I have to thank Child Gu for his zither. Now this zither can be returned to its owner. Gu Zian shook his head and lightly said, this zither is not this Gu's. I was just afraid of wasting a heavenly treasure, so I casually picked it up. If Miss Shue wants to return it to its owner, you might as well go find its original owner. Ning Xiuema was stunned. She was a very smart person and looked at Yan Ziyuan. Yan Ziyuan's face was a bit pale and her bright eyes dimmed. She was thinking too much. She thought that he didn't hate her, so he secretly picked up her zither. So he was just afraid of wasting a heavenly treasure. Moreover, he didn't want to keep it and just casually gave it away. Yan Ziyuan, thinking too much is an illness, you have to treat it. It's time to cut everything off. She gave a faint smile. Shue, this zither is mine. Can you return it to me? I'll give you a good one later. Ning Xiuema naturally wouldn't refuse. She happily handed the zither to her and said, you don't have to give it to me anymore. I'm also on a journey, so it's inconvenient to bring this along. Yan Ziyuan took the zither and casually played it with her fingertips. A series of ding-ding-dong-dong-dong sounds were heard. Her expression was a little strange, as if she cherished it, but also as if she was indifferent. Gu Zian glanced at her, a hint of a smile on his lips. She still cherishes this zither, doesn't she? He remembered that she loved this zither, as if it was a treasure. No matter where she went, she would carry it herself and not allow anyone to touch it. Not even the zither boy. Except for him, of course. He had chosen this guqin for her. Since she cherished it so much, he naturally knew what she meant. At that time, he had only felt annoyed, but now suddenly, several clanging sounds were heard. Yan Ziyuan's hands suddenly slashed. 7 strings snapped at the same time. Countless people looked over. His eyes were filled with surprise and confusion. Although this zither wasn't a peerless zither, its quality and workmanship were top-notch, so it was worth a lot. They didn't expect that Yan Ziyuan would casually break the strings. Gu Zian's smile froze on his lips. His fingers suddenly clenched. Ziyuan. Yin Ziyuan didn't even look at him. She struck the zither with her palm again. The zither instantly broke into 2 pieces. It was completely destroyed. She looked at the ashen-faced Gu Ziyan and smiled calmly. This zither is flawed. I've wanted to destroy it for a long time. Now I just have time. Gu Ziyan's face was pale. His hands clenched and loosened and clenched again. But he couldn't say anything else. Chapter 471. Rong Yan sighed. So this zither belongs to Miss Yan. Brother Ziyan said that the zither is a sacred object that touches the soul. No matter what kind of zither it is, he will treat it well. There are many zither in his zither room. Among them, there is no lack of zither that he picked up from various places. There is even a broken zither full of cracks. A Yen takes care of these zither for him every day, so she knows them the best. Who told Brother Ziyan to be a zither fanatic? She had a helpless expression on her face, but every word and sentence was full of a sense of possessiveness, letting people know that her relationship with Gu Ziyan is really close. Everyone originally thought that Gu Ziyan picked up Yen Ziyuan's zither. Perhaps there was some ambiguity between the two, and Gu Ziyan treated Yen Ziyuan differently. But after Rong Yan's explanation, everyone immediately felt that Gu Ziyan picked up the zither purely because he loves it. It has nothing to do with the person who threw it away. Gu Ziyan glanced at Rong Yan and slightly frowned. It seems that he wanted to say something, but in the end he held back. His eyes glanced at Yen Ziyuan. Although Rong Yan's complexion was a little pale, the corners of her mouth still held a trace of a smile. After Rong Yan finished speaking, her face became even more indifferent. Your brother Ziyan is a refined scholar, but I am a vulgar person. I like to do things that burn the zither and cook the crane. After saying that, she sat back down on her seat. The maid behind her poured a cup of tea for her. She took a sip and praised. Good tea. Her set of movements was smooth as flowing water, as if there was no one around. But the fingers holding the teacup faintly trembled, and the tea spilled a little. The atmosphere was a little subtle for a moment. The organizer of the zither recital stood up to smooth things over and changed the topic. This zither recital has been successfully concluded. This time the winner is Miss Xue Xue. He said a few congratulatory words, and finally he held up the plate containing the phoenix crystal wood. This phoenix crystal wood is yours. A smile appeared on Ning Xuema's face. She was just about to take it when suddenly there was a zheng sound of a zither from outside. The sound was like splitting silk. This voice was like a sudden clap of thunder that exploded in everyone's hearts. Almost everyone trembled. The person in charge of the Guqin recital trembled especially hard. His hand shook, and the plate fell to the ground. The phoenix crystal wood on the plate fell to the ground and shattered into 17 or 18 pieces. My crystal phoenix wood. Ning Xuema looked at the crystal phoenix wood on the ground, almost unable to cry even if she wanted to. This thing was like an egg. It was most effective when it was whole, but once it was broken, it would be like an egg with the yolk and white flowing away, leaving only the eggshell behind. It was useless. At this moment, the sound of a zither could be heard outside. Ding ding dong dong. String after string of notes flowed out and reverberated on the surface of the lake. The zither player's skills were naturally brilliant. With just a few notes, it had an extremely shocking effect, stunning all the zither players on the ship. An expert. A peerless master. An unprecedented master of the Guqin. Everyone's face was filled with a passion for art. They all rushed to the window and looked in the direction of the sound. Then, all of them seemed to be frozen in place. Under the moonlight on the surface of the water, a small boat slowly sailed over. A man in red sat cross-legged at the bow of the boat. On his lap was a deep blue zither that was like the canopy of the sky. Under the moonlight, it was overflowing with brilliant colors. The small boat rippled. The full moon above his head was like a silver moon. The deep blue sky automatically became a backdrop behind him. His red clothes were winding and fluttering behind him. His black hair was soft and smooth, draping over his shoulders. His facial features were elegant and peerless. When he smiled slightly, it was as if the flowers between heaven and earth had bloomed. Chapter 472. Moonlight boat, red clothes, black hair. Poetic and picturesque. All of this was like a beautiful dream, and everyone couldn't help but hold their breaths. They were afraid that if they let out a long breath, they would be able to scatter this dream and blow the beauty away. Ning Xiuema originally wanted to see which evildoer had frightened her phoenix crystal wood, but the moment she saw the man's face, she also held her breath and couldn't help but take a step back. The red-clothed evildoer. Shuailan. This guy actually appeared here. This was really a small world for enemies. What did he come here for? Was it a coincidence or did he have a motive? This continent was so big, and there were so many people, so why did she have to meet this guy again and again? What kind of ill-fated fate was this? Ning Xiuema was speechless and asked the heavens. She took a step back, then another step back. She quietly left the window and hid behind the crowd. Hopefully, this guy was just passing by and wouldn't come to this boat. Her heart was beating wildly, and her palms were covered in cold sweat. She had once schemed against this guy in Monster Lake. With this person's vengeful nature, once he caught her, she was afraid that her little life would be over. The sound of the zither continued outside, and the song Ning Xiuema played just now was Moonlit Night of Spring River. Ning Xiuema's playing could already be considered to be at the peak of perfection, and Shuailan's playing could be called the sound of nature. It was not something a human could play. Everyone was intoxicated listening to it. Not only the people on this boat, even the nearby boats and fishing boats all stopped moving. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Only the faint sound of the zither could be heard on the surface of the lake. Ethereal, mysterious, like smoke enveloping the cold sand, like the moon covering the mountains and rivers. Everyone felt that after listening to his zither, their elegant and high-end playing just now was like playing cotton. It was unbearable to the ears. The sound of the zither was wonderful, and the person playing the zither was even more wonderful. He was so handsome that he didn't seem to belong to this world. Not to mention the women present. Even the young men's hearts were shaken, and they almost forgot what day it was. Ning Xiuema stood there looking down. She was not mesmerized by the sound of the zither. There was only one thought in her mind. Let's go. Let's go. Heavens, this guy is just passing by, let him scram. Stop acting coquettish here. But this time, the heavens clearly did not hear her prayer, because the sound of the zither continued to linger in the vicinity, neither far nor near. Obviously, it had no intention of leaving. The sound of the zither finally stopped. The sky was dark blue, and the lake was blue. A thin layer of fog rose from the lake, covering half of the lake's surface. It also made the people on the boat faintly discernible. It almost made people think that the person would dissipate with the fog. Brother. Brother. No, great master, may I invite you onto the ship for a chat? The most respected musician judge on Ning Xiuema's ship actually opened his mouth to invite him. Ning Xiuema was shocked. Was this guy someone they could provoke? Was this musician trying to get himself into trouble? Would that evildoer agree? Ning Xiuema's breathing had already stopped. Since you've invited me, I dare not refuse. Shuailan's reply came from outside with a smile. His voice was slightly hoarse, as if it contained a hint of water vapor. It was exceptionally magnetic and pleasant to the ears. He had actually agreed. He had actually agreed. The people on the boat were in an uproar, especially the women. Their eyes shone brightly as they watched the red-robed man slowly stand up from the boat. There was no one to paddle his boat, but it moved through the water and slowly moved towards the big ship. Chapter 473. The women began to dress up, tidying their hair and tidying their clothes. Some of them even quickly took out mirrors from their sleeves and secretly looked at themselves. They all wanted to show their best side to this man, and not leave any flaws. Ning Xiuema quietly retreated to the back cabin door. She wanted to leave before Shuailan boarded the ship. Her disguise might be able to fool the people here, but it definitely could not fool that guy's eyes. Because that guy was not human at all. Very good, because this place was located in the south and the weather was quite hot. The front and back cabin doors and windows were all open. Now, everyone's attention was on the man in red who had not yet boarded the ship, so no one noticed Ning Xiuema. Even Yan Ziyuan did not notice her. Ning Xiuema was very fast. She quietly exited the back cabin door. She had to leave before that evildoer noticed her. This evildoer's Guqin skills were quite good. Perhaps he only boarded the ship to learn from others, and might not harm the people here. As long as these people did not covet his Guqin, it should be fine. But she could not do that. She had a grudge against him. Once they met, she would be finished. So she had to leave early on her own. Even Yan Ziyuan did not have time to inform her in advance. Because once she did, Yan Ziyuan would definitely ask countless questions. It would also alarm the others. And then there would be many more variables. She was afraid that she would make a noise and alert the evildoer, so she did not choose to jump into the water. Instead, she grabbed the rope beside her and slowly slid down. She entered the water very softly and did not make any noise. She only created a ripple on the surface of the water. To be safe, she did not dare to stay on the surface of the water. Once she entered the water, she directly dived to the bottom. She had to dive for more than 10 meters first. Just as she dived half a meter into the water around her suddenly rippled. It was as if something had closed in and directly enveloped her. When Ning Xiuema saw it clearly, she realized that she had actually entered a big net that was the same color as the ripples. She was shocked, and a bad feeling rose in her heart. She subconsciously tried to tear the big net in front of her, but she didn't know what the big net was made of. It was very strong, and she couldn't tear it open even after using all her mental strength. What was worse was that she was very familiar with the feel of the net, as if she had touched it before. Because it was night time, the light underwater was even dimmer. Ning Xiuema couldn't see the color of the net, even if she tried her best. She tried several ways to get rid of the net, but to no avail. After touching the net a few more times, the familiar feeling became even stronger. Even after using her knife to hack at the net, she still couldn't damage it in the slightest. Finally, Ning Xiuemo remembered the origin of the net. This was clearly the mechanism that she had used to trap that red-clothed evildoer. At that time, she felt that the big net was stained with the red-clothed evildoer's blood, so she casually threw it into the monster lake. Who would have thought that he would appear here again? Needless to say, it was the red-clothed evildoer who had placed the net here. That bastard knew she was on the boat. He also knew that she was going to escape, so he had placed the net here in advance to wait for her. This mechanism was not something that could be destroyed by human strength. In order to get rid of the net, she had to go up again. Although she knew that going up would not be a good thing, Ning Xiuema had no other choice at this time. If she didn't go up, she could only suffocate to death here. If she went up, she might still have a chance to survive. Her hands and feet moved in the water, dragging the big net upstream. Chapter 474. Unexpectedly, just as her head was about to touch the surface of the water, the net around her suddenly tightened again. She was stuck there, unable to go up or down. Ning Xiuema tried several methods, but she was unable to get out of this situation. The surface of the water was only a few inches away from her, but she couldn't go up or breathe. She had already held her breath for a long time. Her chest felt like it was going to explode, and her head was buzzing from the lack of oxygen. Her heart turned cold. She had already experienced the feeling of holding her breath in the water once. She never thought that she would experience this feeling again a few days later. Although she had suffered that time and almost drowned, she still managed to escape in the end. What about this time? That red-clothed evildoer was clearly taking revenge on her. With his personality, would he let her go so easily? Ning Xiuema desperately raised her head. From where she was, she could see the deep blue sky and the bright stars. Freedom was so close. Air was so close, but she was only one step away from life. There seemed to be some movement on the boat as a group of people came out. The leader was the red-clothed evildoer, Shuilan. He stood at the stern of the boat, leaning against the railing as he looked down. His eyes sparkled under the starlight as he stared at Ning Xiuema, who was trying her best to look up. Separated by a thin layer of the lake, his eyes met hers. When their eyes met, Ning Xiuema clenched her teeth. Shuilan looked down at her, who was on the verge of death. The corner of his lips curved into a gentle and elegant smile. The people behind him also looked down and naturally saw Ning Xuema struggling to get out of the water. Someone screamed, "Miss Ning Xuema has fallen into the water." Shue shue. Yin Ziyuan suddenly rushed out from the crowd. "Someone quickly save her." Splash. Splash. Two boatmen jumped into the water and swam towards Ning Xuema, trying to get her out. Ning Xuema stared at Shui Yilan, who was standing at the end of the boat. She felt that this evildoer wouldn't let anyone save her so easily. He still wanted to toy with her. The two boatmen quickly swam to Ning Xuema's side, only to discover that she was wrapped in an almost transparent net. No wonder she couldn't get up. Without another word, the two men stretched out their hands to pull at the big net. They wanted to tear the big net apart, or pull her up with the net. Unexpectedly, the net seemed to be fixed in place, and they couldn't move it at all. Because of the commotion caused by their actions, Ning Xuema, who was trapped in the net, swayed twice in the water. This movement caused the last bit of air in her mouth to be exhausted. She knew that at this time, even if she suffocated to death, she couldn't breathe. Otherwise, if she choked on the water, she would really be finished. Her face was still red at first, but then it slowly turned white and green. She bit her lips so hard that her lips were bleeding, but she did not feel any pain. His vision was getting darker and darker, and his head was getting dizzier and dizzier. His forehead was twitching as if something was about to pop out. The two boatmen naturally saw that her situation was critical. One of them steeled his heart and said, "Miss Shui, sorry for the offense." He raised his head to take a deep breath and plunged into the water. His lips moved towards Ning Xuema's lips, wanting to give her some air to slow her down. But before his lips could touch Ning Xuema's lips, his body in the water suddenly trembled, as if he had been attacked by something. His face turned white, and his body tilted. He died on the spot and slowly sank into the water. Chapter 475. The other person was shocked and subconsciously reached out to grab his comrade. However, just as his fingers touched his comrade's clothes, his expression changed. With a groan, his body tilted and sank into the water. Because they were high above the water, the people on the boat could not see what happened in the water. They only saw the two people sinking into the water. Yen Ziyuan was worried about Ning Xuema's safety, and immediately sent two people who were good at swimming. Ning Xuema's heart turned cold. She naturally knew that the deaths of the two boatmen were related to Shui Yilan. They were most likely plotted against by him. As long as that bastard was standing there, no matter how many people were sent, it would be useless. They would lose a few more lives for no reason. Although she knew it clearly, she could not open her mouth to warn the people on the boat, because she had been underwater. She tried her best to widen her eyes and stared at Shui Yilan. If looks could kill, Shui Yilan would have been dismembered by her several times. Shui Yilan had been standing there with his hand on the railing. His posture was elegant and he looked like a demon. The smile on his lips was overflowing as he coldly watched Ning Xuema struggle on the brink of death. Because of the lack of oxygen, Ning Xuema's head became more and more bloated. In the end, it felt like it was going to explode. The psychokinesis in her body was also rushing around in her body, causing her tendons and meridians to hurt as if they were being torn apart. She subconsciously adjusted her breathing and adjusted her chaotic meridians. She did not know what was going on. When she adjusted her breathing and adjusted the airflow in her body, her forehead suddenly jumped again. It was as if a small mouth was slowly opening there. There was clearly no water coming out of her forehead, but that small mouth seemed to be able to decompose the oxygen in the water. After a moment, she actually did not feel suffocated anymore. What was going on? Could it be that there was really an additional small mouth on her forehead? Wasn't that like Erlang Shen? However, Erlang Shen's forehead opened the heaven's eye, while hers opened the heaven's mouth. She almost wanted to raise her hand to touch it, but just as she was distracted, she felt that the little mouth on her forehead that could breathe underwater wanted to close. This was already her only hope. She immediately focused her mind and once again circulated her energy. She finally managed to get the little mouth to breathe again. Shui Yilan leaned on the railing and looked at her. She was still glaring at him earlier, but now she had her eyes closed. She pursed her lips slightly and floated in the water. Her long hair was spread out behind her as she floated in the water. She looked extremely fragile. Could she have drowned? He didn't even see her choking on the water. He looked at Ning Xiuema carefully again. His eyesight was naturally amazing, so he could clearly see her entire condition. Her chest did not rise and fall at all. Oh no! Was he really dead? Shui Yilan's figure rose and floated down like a red cloud. With a wave of his sleeve, he waved away the two boatmen who had just swum over and were about to rescue them. He floated on the water like an immortal. His shoes and socks were not wet. Everyone on the boat gasped softly. Not to mention anything else. Just this qinggong alone was enough to shock the world. Some of the girls actually forgot that Ning Xiuema was still underwater and shouted out, "Good!" Shui Yilan's sleeves fluttered in the wind. He lowered his eyes to look at Ning Xiuema, who was underwater. This little girl was too crafty. Even someone like him had been plotted against by her several times, so he had no choice but to guard against her. Her beautiful face turned green and white as she floated there motionlessly. At this time, she couldn't possibly do anything, right? Everything was clear at a glance, wasn't it? Chapter 476. Shui Yilan's eyes faintly flickered. Finally, he raised his hand and made a grabbing motion towards the surface of the water. He didn't know which mechanism he had triggered, but the net that had been fixed under the surface of the water brought Ning Xiuema out of the water. He stretched out his arms and caught Ning Xiuema with the net in his arms. The body of the beauty in his arms was slightly cold, but her eyes were still closed. Although she was already out of the water, she still wasn't breathing. Little girl, how does it feel to be in the net? Is it enough to make you happy? Don't die. His bright red lips moved closer to Ning Xiuema's ear and whispered. His warm breath lingered in her ear. That scene was indescribably lingering. The people on the boat were already very surprised to see him go into the water to save someone. Then they saw the otherworldly man holding the wet Ning Xiuema in his arms. His posture was very intimate, as if he was holding his first love. Most of the women on the boat suddenly felt that if the one who fell into the water was them, then it would be good. If they could be tenderly hugged by this person, then even if they died, it would be worth it. They originally thought that this was the best that the red-clothed man could do for Ning Xiuema. But they didn't expect that there would be something even more shocking. The red-clothed man said something in Ning Xiuema's ear. Then he slowly lowered his head and kissed Ning Xiuema's lips. Everyone's jaws dropped. Because Ning Xiuema had put on makeup before, her face didn't look ugly or handsome. Other than her astonishing zither skills, the others didn't feel that there was anything special about her. Men were basically visual creatures, and they appreciated beautiful women the most. Therefore, although they admired Ning Xiuema's zither skills, they didn't have any romantic thoughts towards her. The women on the boat also didn't treat Ning Xiuema as a love rival or competitor. No one would have thought that this red-clothed zither master, who seemed to have a good temper and didn't put anyone in his eyes, would take pity on Ning Xiuema. Not only did he personally save her, he also kissed her. This world was a fantasy. The women were indignant and felt that this zither master Shue's luck was too good. Rong Yan was the most unconvinced. Among the women present, other than Yan Ziyuan, she was the prettiest. She was also a top-notch character. No matter where she went, she would become the focus of men's eyes. Although she already had Gu Ziyan in her heart, her competitive nature made her want to show off her charm in front of beautiful men, to prove her extraordinariness. Therefore, when Shui Yilan had just boarded the ship, she deliberately squeezed in front of the crowd and spoke a few words to Shui Yilan. Her voice had always been pleasant to listen to, and her posture was gentle and beautiful. Most men would find it difficult to resist her charm. Even if they weren't charmed by her, they would still greet her politely and warmly. But at that time, she had said so much to the red-clothed man. But the red-clothed man had no intention of paying attention to her. She had gotten herself into a tight spot. Although there was a hint of a spring breeze smile on his lips, the expression in his eyes was indifferent. He didn't put her, a talented woman, in his eyes. To be exact, he didn't put anyone here in his eyes. After he sat down surrounded by the crowd, he directly asked for the top 7 list of the zither recital. When he casually said that he wanted to know the first place, everyone discovered that Ning Xiuema had disappeared. While everyone was looking for Ning Xiuema in the cabin, Rong Yan came forward and intentionally or unintentionally introduced herself, saying that she was the third place on the list. Chapter 477. While everyone was looking for Ning Xiuema in the cabin, Rong Yan stepped forward and intentionally or unintentionally introduced herself, saying that she was the third on the list and so on. It was this remark that made the red-clothed man look at her, and then he smiled. His smile was too beautiful, too soul-stirring. 2.5 of her soul flew away from her when she saw his smile. She almost couldn't find her bearings. Just as she was about to say a few more words to leave a good impression on this man, everyone heard some movement at the stern of the boat. Then the red-clothed man stood up and chuckled. The first place Shui girl didn't fall into the water, did she? Then he took the lead and walked out of the cabin to the stern. Then the following scenes happened. The red-clothed man breathed for Ning Xiuema, shocking everyone on the boat. One after another, the sound of inhaling was endless. Rong Yan couldn't help but sneer and explain. This master is so kind, actually willing to breathe for such a woman. Presumably, no matter who fell into the water and fainted, the master would do the same. Her tone was obviously sour. Yan Ziyuan originally didn't want to pay attention to her, but hearing her say that about her friend, she immediately became angry. Rong Yan, what nonsense are you talking about? What kind of woman is this? Shui is a woman's husband. How can someone like you casually praise her? Yan Ziyuan's appearance was originally cold and elegant, but at this moment her pretty face was taut, and under her anger, her momentum was not small. Rong Yan's heart was cold, but she didn't dare to refute. She could only look at Gu Zian for help. Gu Zian stood there expressionlessly, looking at Yan Ziyuan. His eyes were somewhat deep. He didn't have the intention to help Rong Yan. Yan Ziyuan's mind was completely focused on Ning Xiuema below. After reprimanding Rong Yan, she held the railing and looked down, her face anxious. She was about to call the red-clothed man to rescue Ning Xiuema. But she didn't expect that the red-clothed man who was kissing her, as if he was pricked by a needle, suddenly raised his head, and blood seemed to be dripping from his lips. At this moment, Ning Xiuema, who was motionless in his arms, suddenly moved. She raised her sleeves, and several blue flying needles shot towards the red-clothed man's chest. No one expected this sudden change. Several people cried out in alarm. The red-clothed man chuckled. With a wave of his sleeve, the flying needles immediately disappeared. But Ning Xiuema was obviously not finished. At the same time she launched the poison needles, her two palms to hit the red-clothed man's chest. Her legs were not idle. With a fierce kick, her knees directly hit the red-clothed man's crotch. Her sudden attack was a perfect example of 3 words. Fast, accurate, ruthless. In the blink of an eye, she had already unleashed 3 deadly moves. She was fast, but the red-clothed man was faster than her. Before the crowd could cry out in alarm, the red-clothed man had already made his move, but no one saw how he did it. The crowd didn't even see how he made his move, but with just a few moves he blocked all 3 of Ning Xiuema's killer moves. With a raise of his hand he resolved the danger. Little Xiuema, you're really naughty, the red-clothed man said with a smile. His arms circled around her, and he held her tightly. Ning Xiuema's hands and feet were restrained by him, so she couldn't break free. Seeing his handsome face in front of her, she steeled her heart and headbutt him. She practiced internal strength, and although she didn't practice the iron head art, her head was much harder than ordinary people. So the power of this headbutt was not small. There's more at noon. Chapter 478. She had practiced inner strength before. Although she had never practiced the iron head technique, her head was still much harder than an ordinary person's. The force of this collision was not small. If the red-clothed man were to be hit by her, his handsome face would be smashed into mush. Her attack was aimed directly at his nose. Damn it, even if she couldn't kill him, she wanted to break his nose and make him jump in pain. The man in red did not seem to be able to dodge. He only had time to lower his head slightly and move his nose away. Bang! Ning Xuema's forehead hit his forehead. Ning Xuema's mind was suddenly in a daze. She saw stars and stars dancing in front of her eyes. She couldn't see anything clearly. Little Xuema, I know you want to be intimate with me, but you are too impatient. Look, you hit yourself, right? Ah, there's a bump. Shui Ilan's voice was steady, and there was a hint of concern in it. As he spoke, he even reached out a hand to rub Ning Xuema's forehead. His voice was filled with pity. Ning Xuema was speechless. Was this guy's forehead made of iron? She had clearly hit him with a lot of force, and the effect of the force was mutual. Even someone like her who had practiced martial arts would feel dizzy from hitting herself. But this guy didn't have any problem at all. She had hit him so hard that it was as if she had hit a piece of wood. His tone was gentle, but the strength of his fingers was not the same. His fingertips were rubbing the bump on Ning Xuema's forehead, causing her great pain. It also finally cleared her head from the dizziness of the impact. She shook her head fiercely and shook off his mischievous fingers. She glared at him fiercely. What do you want? Shui Ilan looked at her gently and sighed softly. Little Xuema, every time we meet, you want to hit or kill me. It makes me very sad. Sad your sister. Ning Xuema cursed in her heart. She struggled for a moment, but Shui Ilan tightened his grip on her body, making it impossible for her to move an inch. He also made it hard for her to breathe. Let go of me. She gritted her teeth. Shui Ilan shook his head seriously. That won't do. You're a little loach. If I let go of you, you'll run away again. As he spoke, his palms started to touch Ning Xuema's body. Ning Xuema's expression changed. Was this bastard trying to molest her in front of so many people? Hey, what are you doing? Stop. She gritted her teeth, but there was nothing she could do. Shui Ilan smiled. Under the starlight, his smile was as resplendent as the moon, but the words he said were infuriating. Don't worry, I've touched it once, so I'll naturally stop. His hand reached into her chest. Even though Ning Xuema's skin was thick at this moment, her face was flushed red. She usually looked carefree and didn't care much about etiquette, but she was still a virgin. After being touched by him so unscrupulously, she wanted to bite this bastard to death. Bastard. Take your dirty hands away. If you do this again, I'll bite my tongue and commit suicide. Anyway, she wouldn't be able to get away with it if she fell into his hands, so she might as well die. Shui Ilan's hand reached out from her chest, but he didn't really molest her. When he withdrew his fingers, there was a bag of needles between his fingertips. He said slowly, Don't think too much. I just want to pull out the poisonous thorns of a little hedgehog like you. While he was speaking, his fingers had already nimbly touched every part of Ning Xuema's body. From her body he found 3 packs of poisonous needles, a bottle of poisonous sand, 10 packs of poisonous powder, and a pile of other things. Chapter 479. Ning Xuema glared at him angrily. This bastard actually took all of her belongings. He didn't even let go of her banknotes. She clearly kept a lot of her things very well. Very secretive. Shui Ilan looked at the bottles and jars that he took out inside. So many poisonous things. Little Xuema, aren't you afraid that you'll accidentally poison yourself? Ning Xuema angrily said. It has nothing to do with you. In fact, although she had a lot of poisonous things on her body, she had stored them very well, so there would never be a situation where she would be poisoned. How can it have nothing to do with me? You're my person. If you poison yourself or kill yourself, my heart will ache. Shui Ilan's eyes were watery and full of affection. Ning Xuema was speechless. When did she become his person? Also, what did this bastard say about his heart aching? He was clearly the one who almost drowned her. If it wasn't for the heaven's mouth on her forehead, wait. Was the heaven's mouth on her forehead still there? Ning Xuema almost wanted to reach out and touch it. Shui Ilan seemed to have read her mind and sighed faintly. In order to save you, I didn't care about how dirty your body was and gave you some air. However, you bit the hand that fed you and hurt my lips. There was even a hint of grievance in his voice. Ning Xuema was shocked by him and trembled. She stared at Shui Ilan's lips. She had indeed bitten him when he wasn't paying attention just now. There were still drops of blood on this guy's lips. Strange, she had clearly smeared some kind of poison on her teeth. She had taken the antidote beforehand, so she wasn't poisoned. How come this bastard wasn't poisoned either? Shui Ilan was a considerate person. He immediately understood the confusion in Ning Xuema's eyes and kindly explained to her, "Little Xuema, I'm the poison ancestor. I'm immune to all poisons." So that's how it is. Ning Xuema's mind was spinning rapidly. This bastard looked like he was smiling and had a good temper, but he was actually a pervert. Now that she was in his hands, she didn't know how he would torture her. How could she escape? His kung fu was not as good as his, he could not poison him, and he could not bind him with an oath. If she had the chance in the future, she would have to find a way to make this bastard swear an oath in the name of the demon ancestor, so that he would not be passive. Shui Ilan didn't feel tired at all as he hugged her and chatted with her on the surface of the water. She was still dragging that big net on her body. Seeing her pretty face turn pink and white from anger, he felt a sense of accomplishment. He couldn't help but raise his hand to pinch her cheek. "Little Xuema, I haven't seen you for a long time. You've grown up a lot." It was becoming more and more tender. "I almost couldn't recognize you." His fingers were gentle, but Ning Xuema had goosebumps all over her body. She was afraid that he would tear her face off on a whim. Shui Ilan probably felt Ning Xuema's tense body. He looked at her and asked, "Are you afraid of me? I really want to slap you to death." Ning Xuema complained in her heart, but she didn't say anything. "You really are afraid of me." "Sigh, actually you don't have to be afraid of me. I love you so much." "Love her? Damn, he always made her love him, right?" Ning Xuema almost wanted to laugh at his face. "Do you hate me? Do you want to bite me to death? Do you want to take revenge on me completely?" Shui Ilan looked into her eyes and asked. Was there a need to ask? If she had the ability to do so, she would have kicked this bastard into the 18th level of hell. "Actually, I have an excellent way for you to take revenge on me. Do you want to hear it?" Shui Ilan smiled lightly. Chapter 480. Was there something wrong with his head? How could he think of a way for others to take revenge on him? His idea was most likely a wicked one, or he was just teasing her. Ning Xuema closed her eyes. "If you don't say anything, I'll take it as a yes. My idea is for you to marry me." Shui Ilan said something shocking. Ning Xuema finally opened her eyes. She looked as though she was looking at a crazy person. "You can only stay by my side if you marry me. When you're angry, you can hit me with your little fists. When you're unhappy, you can plot against me when I'm asleep. Or you can just show me your charm and make me die of exhaustion in bed. If you really hate me to death, you can also spend all my money and make me a penniless pauper. Let me starve and cold on the streets. But I have always been a person who dotes on the person beside me. If you are a little disrespectful to me, I will not bicker with you. I will pamper you, spoil you, and let you live like a queen. You see, isn't it better for you to take revenge on me by marrying me?" This set of theories was simply overturning one's worldview. Ning Xuema was defeated by him. She gritted her teeth and finally said, "Are you a masochist who likes to be abused? I'm sorry, but I don't have such a perverted hobby. I don't want to cooperate with you either. I only beg you to let me go and treat me as a stranger. We'll go our separate ways and don't provoke each other, okay?" Her words were more modern words. Fortunately, Shui Ilan was smart. He followed the meaning of her words and understood the gist of it. His eyelashes curved slightly. "No, okay. I think I like you quite a lot. I don't want to go our separate ways." He pointed at her red lips. "I'll make you marry me willingly and be my concubine." Ning Xuema. She was indeed destined to be a concubine. Both of them wanted her to be a concubine. "That's what you said. You have to make me do it willingly and not force me." Ning Xuema immediately seized the opportunity in his words. "Yes, I did say that." Shui Ilan smiled, but there was a hint of malice in his smile. "However, my words can usually be discounted. Whether they count or not is up to me." Ning Xuema. Talking to this pervert was exhausting. She took a deep breath. "Since you want me to be willing, you have to show me some sincerity and treat me better. That way, I might be moved by you." First, take this net away. It's making my stomach hurt. Shui Yilan laughed. That won't do. You're too slippery. I'll be more at ease with this net covering you. Didn't you say you were going to treat me well? You can't even fulfill such a small request? Ning Xuema provoked him. If you agree to my proposal and become my concubine, I'll naturally treat you well. Shui Yilan looked at her with a smile. Why don't you agree now? Agree my ass. Only a ghost would be his concubine. Besides, this guy didn't mean what he said. She was afraid that if she agreed, he would do whatever he wanted to do to her. He might even make fun of her. This kind of person had a characteristic. The more he couldn't get something, the more he would desperately pursue it. Once he got it, he would put it to the back of his mind. Perhaps he would find it no longer challenging and kill her directly. If she didn't agree, she might be able to live longer. Once she agreed, her life would come to an end. Chapter 481. If she didn't agree, she might be able to live a little longer. Once she agreed, her little life would come to an end therefore. Ning Xuema's lips curled up slightly. In your dreams. She was indeed an extraordinary little girl. Every decision she made was beyond his expectations, and it only piqued his interest and made him even more reluctant to let go of her. He also smiled. Little Xuema, let's wait and see. The tip of his foot kicked off the surface of the water, and his body floated up as light as a feather. Together with the net, he carried Ning Xuema and flew to the bow of the boat. The people on the ship were already boiling. Just now, Shui Yilan and Ning Xuema's conversation was sometimes high and sometimes low, so they also heard a few sentences. No one would have thought that the ordinary-looking Miss Shui would have so many entanglements with this heavenly master. This master who didn't put anyone in his eyes was actually pursuing her, and she clearly didn't take this man seriously. Other than saying no, she kept rejecting him. It's not fair. It's not fair. Is this the so-called ugly people make more trouble? Is this the so-called good men don't have good wives? Everyone looked at Shui Yilan with different gazes, all kinds of emotions. Of course, they also saw Ning Xuema in Shui Yilan's arms. Ning Xuema was tightly held in Shui Yilan's arms. Her small face was almost buried in his chest, so no one could see her expression. That kind of posture was too intimate. Who knew how many girls' hearts were broken? It also made the eyes of a few girls who had just been in love quietly turn red. Yan Ziyuan was worried about her good friend. She didn't care about anything else and hurriedly stepped forward. Shui, are you okay? Did you choke? Ning Xuema was still in Shui Yilan's arms and only said a few words. I'm fine. You guys can leave. Yan Ziyuan didn't know what the red-clothed evildoer was planning to do by bringing her on board the ship. With his murderous temper, it was obviously not safe for Yan Ziyuan to stay on the ship. It was best for her to leave as soon as possible. Yan Ziyuan didn't understand the meaning of Ning Xuema's words. She couldn't help but take a step forward. I heard that your voice is a little hoarse. Did you choke? I have some medicine for your throat. I said I'm fine, so I'm fine. Who asked you to be a busybody? Ning Xuema's tone was very fierce, but she was a little anxious. If Shui Yilan found out that Yan Ziyuan was her friend, he might use Yan Ziyuan to threaten her. Yan Ziyuan was stunned. Shui. What's wrong with her? Why was he suddenly so impatient and fierce with her? Her face was slightly pale, and she was a little hurt. Rong Yan pursed her lips and smiled. Miss Shui is now the master's personal person. It's enough that she has his concern. Why do you have to ask for it? Ah. Rong Yan's laughter disgusted Yan Ziyuan. She coldly looked at her. Rong Yan, if you don't speak in a strange way, no one will think you're mute. I can care for whoever I want. What's the matter? A sentence blocked Rong Yan's mouth. Rong Yan's face changed, but she still pretended to be a white lotus. Miss Yan, although you don't want to recognize me, I'm still your sister in name. I just want to care for you. I don't want to see you get bullied. Sister? Yan Ziyuan sneered. Her voice was cold. Your surname is Rong, and my surname is Yan. We don't have any blood relationship. What kind of sister are you? You want to enter the Yin mansion's door so much? You don't even want your own ancestors? These words were a little harsh. Chapter 482. Rong Yin was so mean in public that she couldn't continue to act like a white lotus anymore. Her face sank. Miss Yin, we as the younger generation shouldn't ask about our parents' right and wrong. But you've gone too far. Our father has already accepted my mother as his second wife. In any case, she should stay by our father's side. It's fine if you don't agree, but you're also trying to prevent them from reuniting and separating them. Is this your filial piety as a child? In this era, men marrying and taking in concubines was a very common thing, so the people present at most secretly laughed at Madame Rong's lack of virtue, but they didn't think there was any problem with Yen Darren taking in a second wife. In addition, Rong Yin intentionally or unintentionally created an image of her mother enduring humiliation in front of everyone. She even intentionally or unintentionally made people misunderstand that Rong Yan's mother was actually Yen Darren's childhood sweetheart. Because Madame Yin used a scheme to get the position of the mistress of the Yin family, Madame Rong was sad and married to the Rong family. After the decline of the Rong family, Yen Darren felt sorry for his old lover and took them to the Yin family. Then the two of them relapsed and got together again. Rong Yan's mother didn't care about the hatred of Madame Yan's interference. She was benevolent and righteous, endured humiliation, and was willing to be a concubine. This kind of story was obviously more in line with the aesthetic of the poor couple, so everyone sympathized with Rong Yan's mother, who was placed in the outer residence and couldn't enter the Yin family. The people present were all scholars. This kind of people had a bit of pride and didn't fear power. They sympathized with the weak from the bottom of their hearts. At this moment, seeing Yen Ziyuan being aggressive, they couldn't help but be a little angry. This mouth, that mouth, whether overtly or covertly, criticized Yen Ziyuan for being unfilial and arrogant and domineering. Rong Yan's weak posture won the sympathy of everyone, so she couldn't help but feel proud. Looking at Yen Ziyuan's green and white face, she felt particularly relieved. She began to habitually play the role of a white lotus and sighed softly. Everyone, Ziyuan is still young and insensible. I won't blame her as her elder sister. I only hope that she can see that her father is old and lacks a caring person by his side. She won't threaten him with her life and prevent them from reuniting. As for me, what's a little grievance? I only hope that my parents can live well and enjoy the happiness of a family. Yen Ziyuan was so angry that her hands were trembling. She was a straightforward girl and didn't know how to beat around the bush. At this moment, Rong Yan's words made her so angry that she raised her hand to slap Rong Yan's face, which made her feel incomparably disgusted. Chapter 483. Yen Ziyuan's wrist hurt from being held by him, and her heart also seemed to hurt. She suddenly struggled. Take your dirty hand away. Gu Ziyan's face slightly changed, and he subconsciously let go of her hand. He loosened his grip a bit too quickly, and Yen Ziyuan happened to be struggling with all her strength. Coincidentally, Yen Ziyuan was shaken a bit, and retreated a few steps. She couldn't stand still and sat on the ground with a plop. Coincidentally, her head hit the corner of the table next to her. Blood flowed down her forehead. Everyone seemed to have not expected this scene, and they were all stunned. Gu Ziyan's face changed and he reached out to help her. Ziyuan. Yen Ziyuan seemed to have been scalded by fire, and her body slightly moved to the side, avoiding his hand. The little maidservant who accompanied her had already rushed over and hurriedly helped her up from the ground, almost crying. Miss, you're bleeding. Yen Ziyuan shook her head. It's okay. Her forehead was burning with pain, but compared to the pain in her heart, the pain in her forehead was nothing. Her forehead was bleeding profusely, and in the blink of an eye, it had already flowed to her cheeks. The little maidservant hurriedly treated her wound, but because she went out to participate in a zither recital, which was an event for scholars, the little maidservant didn't prepare any ointment for bruises. At this time she anxiously paced around. Miss, this servant should die. I didn't bring any ointment. I have some here. A hand reached out, and there was a bottle of Jinchuang ointment in the palm. It was a very beautiful hand, and it was obvious that it was used to play the zither. Following the finger, it was Gu Ziyan's uneasy face. The little maidservant looked at Yan Ziyuan, but Yan Ziyuan turned a blind eye to that hand. She casually tore a piece of her sleeve, and raised her hand to wrap her head. "It's just a flesh wound, no need to use any medicine." She raised her sleeve, revealing her once white wrist. There was a dark purple circle around her wrist, which was caused by Gu Ziyan in a moment of desperation. Gu Ziyan's eyes moved from her bleeding forehead to her bruised wrist. His face turned even paler. He raised his hand and held Ziyuan's hand, which was about to be bandaged, and stuffed the ointment into her hand. "This wound must be treated, or it will leave a scar." Yan Ziyuan abruptly snatched her hand back. Her movement was big, and Gu Ziyan was also apprehensive. He didn't dare to hold her hand tightly, so she broke free. Even the medicine bottle in his hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. The ointment flowed all over the floor. Pa! With a loud sound, Gu Ziyan's heart seemed to shatter along with the medicine bottle. Gu Ziyan paused and looked at her angry eyes. "Ziyuan, I didn't mean to." Yan Ziyuan secretly took a breath and pulled the corner of her lips. "I know. You were just worried about Rongyan. You can't allow her to be hurt." Yan Ziyuan smiled bitterly in her heart. She understood everything, but she couldn't see through the barrier of love. That's why she repeatedly got hurt because of small things. Her eyes seemed to be filled with tears. She didn't want to stay here any longer. She had already lost face, and she didn't want to make herself more embarrassed by crying here. She was about to bandage her wound and immediately get a boat to leave. Behind her, a hand silently stretched out. There was also ointment in the palm. Miss Yan used this. Yan Ziyuan raised her head and looked into the eyes of a black-clothed youth. The black-clothed youth's eyes were calm, but the hand holding the ointment was very steady. Yan Ziyuan breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 484. The young man in black was her shadow guard. Yan Ziyuan was lively by nature and liked to run around. Her father was afraid that she would get into an accident, so he assigned a shadow guard to her, named Yifeng. Yifeng was not much older than her, around 18 years old, but he was much calmer than her. No matter where Yan Ziyuan went, he would always follow her silently. Yan Ziyuan was at the age where she was rebellious. She worshipped freedom and hated it when someone followed her around, making her unable to have fun. So she cried and argued with her father a few times, asking him to remove this shadow guard. Unfortunately, her father had always complied with her wishes, but he refused to back down on this matter. Yan Ziyuan vented all her anger on Yifeng. As long as she saw him by her side, she would never give him a good look. So Yifeng really became a shadow guard, secretly following Yan Ziyuan around, making her unable to discover him. He would only appear when she met with extreme danger. 2 days ago, Yan Ziyuan went to the capital to watch the Heavenly Master's enthronement ceremony. She only brought a servant girl with her. Like a fat sheep, she wandered around outside and came back safely. In fact, it was all thanks to this shadow guard who helped her deal with all the dangers in the dark. This time when Yan Ziyuan boarded the ship, she did not see Yifeng. She thought that she had finally gotten rid of him this time. But she did not expect that he had also boarded the ship, and was so quiet that she did not notice him at all. Where was he hiding just now? Although she did not like him, but his appearance at this time helped her out of her predicament. She took the ointment from his palm, and let the servant girl help her apply it. Yifeng was very well prepared. Just as the servant girl finished applying the ointment for Yan Ziyuan, he handed over a tray of snow-white bandages. Gu Ziyan stood there, and he was left hanging there. His fingers were clenched tightly in his sleeves. Yan Ziyuan's rejection of him was very serious, and that shadow guard was standing between him and Yan Ziyuan. He could not even see the corner of Yan Ziyuan's clothes. This shadow guard, in addition to being a Guqin master, Gu Ziyan was also a psychokinesis master. If they were to really fight, not many people present would be his match. He was also very good at judging people. Normally, when someone passed by him, he would be able to sense the strength of the other party's aura. From there he could estimate the depth of the opponent's kung fu. It was rare for him to make a mistake. But today he saw 3 people he couldn't see through. The first one was Ning Xiuma. This little girl didn't seem to have a high psychokinesis, but her aura was very strong. The second was Shui Ilan. This red-clothed man not only had a strong aura, but his psychokinesis was also unfathomable. Just looking at him made him feel anxious. That feeling was like a rabbit meeting a tiger. He knew that this person must not be provoked. The third was this shadow guard called Yi Feng. This youth was like a peerless sword hidden in its scabbard. He had a calm demeanor. Although he was silent, no one could ignore him. Gu Ziyan could not see the level of his martial arts at all. Yi Feng's face was not the kind of handsome face that was popular nowadays. His face was strong and simple. His face was handsome and his eyes were deep and calm like the sea. When he looked at Gu Ziyan, that kind of coldness made Gu Ziyan's heart turn cold. After Yan Ziyuan's head injury was bandaged, Yi Feng said, "Miss Yan, the boat has been prepared. Do you want to disembark now?" This person was very understanding. Yan Ziyuan could not wait to leave this place, and Yi Feng had prepared everything for her. Yan Ziyuan was very satisfied. Chapter 485. Yan Ziyuan was very satisfied. When she looked at Yi Feng again, she didn't feel so disgusted. She nodded slightly. "Okay, let's get off the boat." She couldn't help but look in the direction of Ning Xiuma. She could leave, but her friend was still in that man's arms. Would she be in danger? That man's red clothes were as dazzling as the morning sun. She didn't know when he had sat down at the head of the table. Ning Xiuma was still trapped in his arms and couldn't even raise her head. He held Ning Xiuma with one hand and supported his chin with the other. He looked in the direction of Yan Ziyuan with interest, as if he was watching a play with relish. Seeing that Yan Ziyuan was looking at him, he patted Ning Xiuma's back. "Little Xiuma, your friend is really good. She suffered such a grievance and still can't let go of you." Ning Xiuma's heart was anxious. She wanted to kick Yan Ziyuan away. In such a dangerous place, the sooner she left, the sooner she would be safe. Although she had only known Yan Ziyuan for a day, she already understood her temper. She was a passionate, naive, and chivalrous little girl. If she knew that she was in danger, she would probably blindly stay and provoke this evildoer. Her little life could be lost in minutes. She sneered and lightly said, "Friend? Who treats her as a friend? I just want to participate in this zither recital, win this prize, and use her as a ladder to cross the wall." This sentence made Yan Ziyuan's face turn white. She had a simple temperament, so she couldn't think of Ning Xiuma's thoughts. Today she had been betrayed twice in a row, making her angry. She coldly snorted. "Okay, I recognized the wrong person. So you were just using me. Yi Feng, let's go." Yi Feng glanced at Ning Xiuma, then silently turned around and walked beside Yan Ziyuan. He didn't seem to have the consciousness of being a servant. When he spoke to Yan Ziyuan, he didn't bow and salute. When he walked with her, he didn't lag behind like a servant. Shui Ilan still sat there without any intention of stopping her. Ning Xiuma, who had been guarding against him, let out a sigh of relief. As expected, Yi Feng had prepared a small boat under the ship. The small boat was made of ebony. Although it wasn't big, it was sturdy enough to accommodate 3 or 4 people. The suspension ladder to disembark from the boat had already been set up. The young maidservant led the way and boarded the small boat. Yan Ziyuan followed behind, while Yi Feng brought up the rear. Yan Ziyuan's dress fluttered as she approached the small boat. The young maidservant had already reached out her small hand and stood at the bow of the boat, wanting to support her. Yi Feng, who was walking at the back, suddenly had a change in expression. He flew up and picked up Yan Ziyuan, then turned around and flew away. Yan Ziyuan was caught off guard and cried out in alarm. "Yi Feng, what are you?" Before she could finish her sentence, she heard a loud bang behind her, followed by the young maidservant's miserable cry. It went straight into Yan Ziyuan's ears. Following this loud bang, the suspension ladder also broke. At this moment, Yi Feng hadn't rushed back to the ship yet. When the suspension ladder broke, he immediately fell from the sky with Yan Ziyuan in his arms. People on the ship cried out in alarm because they saw that the small boat had turned into a fireball. Yifeng and Yan Ziyuan were falling right above the raging fire. At this critical moment, Yifeng shook his hand, and a black ribbon flew onto the ship and wrapped around one of the masts. Yifeng pulled on the ribbon and flew up like a big bird. He finally returned to the bow of the ship and put Yan Ziyuan down safely. Chapter 486. Yan Ziyuan was still in shock. She calmed herself down and rushed to the bow of the boat. Zhu'er, her servant girl, was called Zhu'er. She was on the small boat that was on fire. At this moment, she had turned into a big ball of fire along with the small boat. There was no way to save her. Yan Ziyuan and Zhu'er were master and servant in name, but in reality, they were like sisters. When Yan Ziyuan saw that she had died for no reason, her eyes turned red, and she almost jumped off the bow of the big boat. "Be careful." Yifeng pulled her back. His voice was still calm. "She is already dead. My condolences." Yan Ziyuan was so angry that she couldn't help but slap him. "What the hell are you doing? Why did you prepare a small boat that could catch fire?" She was heartbroken and lost her ability to think. Pa. This slap landed on Yifeng's left cheek. Yan Ziyuan's hand was numb from the shock. She was also stunned. She didn't expect that she would really slap him. Yifeng's left cheek was left with a red palm print, but he was still as a mountain. Even his voice didn't fluctuate. "It's this subordinate's negligence." He apologized, but he didn't let go of Yan Ziyuan's hand. Yan Ziyuan didn't want him to hold her. She tried to shake him off, but she couldn't. She was so angry that she almost stomped her feet. "Bastard, why are you holding me? Let go." "Miss Yan, sorry to offend you." Yifeng didn't have the intention to let go of her. He used a little strength and pulled her closer to him. The people who heard the commotion frowned. They all felt that this shadow guard was too daring. He actually kept holding his master's hand. The concept of hierarchy in this world was very strict. The master was the master, and the servant was the servant. Everyone present scolded Yifeng, asking him to let go of their master. Gu Ziyan also spoke. "Yifeng, she is the master and you are the servant. It's not proper for you to hold her like this." Yifeng turned a deaf ear to everyone's reprimand. He looked around and frowned. Everyone also subconsciously looked at the surrounding scenery. Suddenly they cried out in surprise. "Hey, where is this? What a thick fog. Is that a deserted island? How did we get here?" No, this is not the lake. There is no island in the lake." Unknowingly, the surroundings were covered in white fog. The fog covered the sky and the surrounding scenery. People could only vaguely see the small island through the gaps in the thick fog. What was going on? Everyone looked at each other, a bad feeling rising in their hearts. The previously bustling ship was now like a ghost ship. The surroundings were gloomy, and even the lanterns hanging on the mast had become blurry, like willow. The wisps in the fog. "What's going on?" Someone asked anxiously. "Brother Ziyan, I'm scared." Rong Yan was like a little bird clinging to Gu Ziyan's side. "Let's go into the cabin." Someone trembled and suggested, taking the lead to run into the cabin, as if it was safe there. "Brother Ziyan, let's go in too?" Asked the steward what's going on. Rong Yan also suggested, tightly pulling Gu Ziyan's arm. Gu Ziyan did not answer her. His eyes fell on Yan Ziyuan. Yan Ziyuan was pulled to Yifeng's side. Her face was pale, but she was still calm. After her outburst, she had already figured out that the fire on the boat had nothing to do with Yifeng. It was an accident that even Yifeng did not expect. Chapter 487. Yifeng had always been a reliable person. For such an accident to happen, it shouldn't be a coincidence, it should be man-made. She immediately thought of the mysterious red-clothed man. All these abnormal things, could it be that he was behind it? But he had no enmity with the people on this ship. Why would he do this? She couldn't help but look at Yifeng beside her. Do you know what's going on?" Yifeng did not answer her. Suddenly, he turned his body and pulled her behind him. It was a protective posture. His sharp and cold eyes looked into the cabin. Clap, clap, clap. There were 3 crisp claps in the cabin, and a lazy voice said, "I didn't expect there to be a master on this ship. Young man, your skills are not bad, you can still escape." The voice was slightly hoarse, but it was unusually magnetic and pleasant to the ears. It was Xue Yilan, who had been silently watching the show. "I don't know why you set up this puzzle, and I don't want to know. But my lady has no enmity with you. Why do you want to kill her?" Yi Feng said in a low voice. "Must there be enmity before I can kill?" Xue Yilan chuckled. "I just like to." He answered as if it was natural, but it made everyone's expression change. "If you like to kill, then kill without asking for any reason. This theory is too demonic. This person is not a master, he's clearly a demon." Everyone looked at the chaotic scene around them, and they were all flustered. "Who the hell are you?" Someone shouted. "I'm not a human." Xue Yilan's voice was light, as if it carried the murderous aura of a water ghost. It made people feel a chill down their backs. "Not a human? Then he's definitely not an immortal. Could it be the legendary demon?" "What is your purpose for coming here?" "I heard the sound of the zither, and came here to compare notes with everyone." Xue Yilan answered elegantly. Everyone looked at each other again, and they secretly sighed in relief. If it was just to compare notes on zither skills, it wouldn't be too dangerous. "I don't know how the master wants to compare notes. Grandmaster's zither skills are brilliant. There are only a few people here who can match up to Grandmaster," Rongyan boldly asked. "You mortals naturally can't compare to me," Xue Yilan replied bluntly. "But I can allow you to fight as a group." Team battle? What did he mean? Everyone didn't understand. Fortunately, Xue Yilan still had an explanation. "You can form a group of 8. If your guqin can surpass mine, then you win." Everyone let out a sigh of relief. In terms of the beauty of the zither, they might not be a match for the red-clothed man, but 8 zither against 1 zither was a sure win. All they had to do was to play the zither at the highest volume. "If we win, will your excellency remove the camouflage and let us go?" "Of course. Then what if we lose?" "If you lose, you'll naturally die," Xue Yilan replied casually. On this boat, there was no lack of people with fiery tempers. One of them, although his zither skills were average, his martial arts were first class, and he had a small reputation in Chongkong country. When he heard Xue Yilan's words, he was dissatisfied and angrily said, "Even if it's a competition, you should pay attention to mutual consent. Your Excellency using such a petty trick makes people laugh coldly. We don't want to compete with you." Just as he finished speaking, he suddenly felt something stuck in his throat, and his body was lifted up in the air. This person's hands and feet moved chaotically, desperately struggling. Chapter 488. The man struggled with all his might, but he couldn't break free from the shackles of the inexplicable power. His body flew backward involuntarily, and with a whoosh he was thrown off the boat and fell into the water. After the man fell into the water, the force around his neck disappeared. He coughed twice and immediately moved his hands and feet, trying his best to pop his head out of the water. At this time his heart calmed down a lot. He knew how to swim. Swimming more than 10 miles was like playing with water. He felt that although the scenery in front of him couldn't be seen clearly, it should be a trick. He should still be in the lake. The depth of the lake was only about 10 miles. He just needed to find a direction and swim. He had a good plan, but he didn't expect to see a blackback swimming towards him as soon as he popped his head out of the water. Before he could react, the thing had already popped its head out of the round table and bared its sharp teeth at him. "Help!" The man tried to escape, but his speed in the water couldn't be compared to the monster. The monster bit his thigh and pulled him into the water. Violent splashes and streaks of red appeared under the water. The people on the boat were so scared that their legs turned to jelly. They watched as the man was torn apart by the monster and disappeared. There were only a few streaks of dark red liquid spreading in all directions in the rippling water. "Monster! There's a monster in the lake. No, maybe this isn't the same lake anymore. Then where is this? Hell." Some of the timid girls were so scared that they lost control of their emotions and screamed. "It's so noisy." Xue Yilan sighed in the cabin. His voice was as soft as the wind, but it carried the darkness of hell's messenger. The three girls who screamed also felt their necks tighten. Their bodies were lifted into the air at the same time. They struggled with all their might, but they were also thrown into the water. Just like before, they were swallowed by the monster that suddenly jumped out of the water. The screams of the girls under the boat were ear-piercing. The people on the boat were all pale, and their legs trembled. They didn't dare to make a sound. Hair. It's hair that's strangling them. It's a strand of hair. Someone with good eyesight finally saw it and couldn't help but shout. Hair? Or just one strand? Everyone looked at the cabin door, and then at the bow. The distance from the cabin to the bow was at least a dozen meters. How long was his hair? Strange. It was too strange. This was really not a human. At this point, no one dared to raise any objections. They could only agree to Shui Ilan's conditions. Shui Ilan chuckled as if he was very satisfied. They are indeed very obedient. He paused for a moment. Little Xiuema, they are much more obedient than you. Bastard, let go of me. Ning Xiuema's angry voice came from the cabin. Why should I let him go? Little Xiuema, you are too slippery. Once I let you go, you will run away again. Although I am very happy that you have found so many zither players for me, 100 of them are not as good as one of you. Shui Ilan's words were very affectionate, but they also dragged Ning Xiuema into the water. Bastard. Ning Xiuema's rebuttal was suddenly blocked. She could only make a vague sound. Everyone looked at each other again. Was that girl called Shui Shui really in cahoots with this red-clothed devil? She obviously came to this zither recital with ulterior motives. Then they all looked at Yin Ziyuan. Although they didn't dare to complain at this time, their eyes were obviously angry. There would be a few more chapters during the day. Mumu created a new VIP group. The group number and the description of joining the group were posted at the top of the comment section. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.